Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous. Welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. Today is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. That's right. It is Twin Peaks Day. I was thinking today that it's probably the sixth Twin Peaks Day that's happened this year so far on Twitter. Anyway, for this special occasion, I have a guest today that I've been wanting to have on for a long time. So I'm glad he's been able to make some time for us today. And that is Mr. Stephen Miller, who is the author and creator of the TwinPeaksBlog.com, which is one of the great Twin Peaks websites out there. And I'm really happy to have him here for a variety of reasons. But he is one of the few guests here that has a blue check next to his name, so he is legit. And Showtime just retweeted him for today's Twin Peaks Day, so that's great.
Yeah, that was funny. That actually happened. I didn't anticipate that. Thank you for your kind words about the blog.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And here's the thing: I had a blog in 1996. Called the Great Northern Hotel, and it's still out there in the Wayback Machine, and it clearly is nothing like what it is today, because back then I had Bravo TV, I had VHS tapes, and that was about all there was related to that. And it's coming up on an anniversary on Tuesday, the 28th. So whatever day that is this week or the 26th. I know it's the 26th. I think I launched it, and I should have launched it on 24th last year, but I didn't. I don't know why. I had been toying with this idea, all that stuff from 2017, the return, everything, all the social media stuff on Twitter, all the interactions and that kind of thing. I thought, I can't remember everything I did, so I might as well start a blog just to help remember what I was talking about at that particular time.
Right. I've had a lot of people watch some of the old videos on this channel, because we were doing the, week by week, what we thought of the episode, rewatching, that type of thing. I'm embarrassed, because to go back and watch that, I mean, we were so clearly off on everything that they were ever doing, but it makes me happy that people still watch them and they go, God, I remember being in that moment and thinking these things, and none of them came true. The only thing that I predicted that actually came true was that, as far as we know, was that I had a feeling that at the end of the series, Laura Palmer would be alive. And the reason why is it was just looking back at Lynch's filmography. He likes to kill Cheryl Lee, bring her back, kill her, bring her back. And so we were due to bring her back because she was dead at the end of Fire Walk with Me. And so I thought, well, he's going to bring her back. And then he did. So,
I remember that part 18, right? And I remember watching it, and I remember looking at the time, and they're driving on that road, that dark road, and they're driving. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to end. This is going to end, and it's going to be just that ending. There's not going to be the resolution that I think everybody wants, in that way. It was almost the same feeling I had when watching episode, 29 or however you want to call it, the very last one of season 2. That same feeling of like, it's
the thing with the old man from Wild at Heart walking across the bank. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing of like, listen, we all know you're watching the clock, so we're just going to stretch this out.
Oh, and he did. And I loved it. And the more, and so as I've gone through and continue to write stories, for the blog and researching this and looking back at it, I reminded of those feelings of, when it first aired, and all the anticipation and the excitement and just the unknown. And I think that sense of discovery, of not sure what to expect from week to week, it all comes back every single time I look at a particular, scene. And how I've been doing the blog, quite frankly, is going back and breaking it down by sets. So I will go through a particular, all the episodes, and look for just the Double R Diner and only things that are to do with the Double R Diner, and watching it without sound, because you just pick up more things. I know the dialogue. I've heard the dialogue enough over the years, but watching it from that angle and then dividing that into the different sets, I think has helped kind of catalog it in my head. But those sense of feelings when you just come back to all that again.
And that's why I like your blog so much, is because, and this is not a diss on anybody else's stuff, but like your blog is more matter of fact. It's let's look at all the pictures of Laura Palmer.
Right.
It's not. I mean, you do throw out ideas and theories, but it's basically like, let's look at what we know.
Right.
And I'm sure I got a kick out of the Laura Palmer picture thing because, you know, I've maintained for years because, you know, I know that, you know, you're original fan like me. And again, that's not a diss on anybody who's a new fan. I'm just saying that, like, there is a difference between people who spent 30 years watching Twin Peaks versus someone who just discovered on Netflix.
Agreed.
But I've always maintained that Fire Walk with Me is just the complete inverse of Twin Peaks, like everything, down to the fact that Laura Palmer's pictures are swapped.
Oh yeah,
right? The school photo and the house photo are completely different. And I kept thinking, okay, I know that this is the fastest production Lynch ever had, but he's not that careless. You know?
It's interesting to see the continuity of it all, and it's no slam against the, you know, people, continuity editors or people looking for that kind of stuff. I'm sure that in their minds, week to week, or, you know, when you're shooting an episodic series and such, you know, that you could try to reference it and so forth. But those just little nuances and changes. I'll have to tell you, I mean, the credit for all of this has to go to those that came before me. So, you know, I think of intwinpeaks.com. And it was, you know, that site was such a reference for me in the last days of the 2000s going into early 2010s and that stuff. Twin Peaks Archive, you know, Welcome to Twin Peaks, all those sites out there that were kind of pulling stuff together and kind of forming that foundation. And when intwinpeaks.com went away for a variety of reasons, that only the site owner knows. I wanted to continue some of those efforts that he had started, because I thought it's just an interesting way to look at it, you know, right. And like pulling towards, like trying to find all the pictures of the mauve carpet, you know, that they used and recycled through the entire series, right. Or the film locations and things like that, the scenes without people, and just kind of the aesthetic of the entire series and such. Right. I thought that was just a different way to look at it without any kind of speculation. I mean, some of the stuff that I write about, you know, I'm just going off of some experience I've had with producing videos or being a part of videos and understanding like how the crew kind of puts something together, or how an editor might put something together. And I've never worked in film or television. I'm just kind of using maybe some conjecture or some experience to kind of say, okay, well, this is maybe why it happened this way. You have the different cuts, or you have different things that they're working on throughout the day, and piece it all together. They take the best takes. I don't have the shooting scripts. I don't have any of that kind of reference. I'm just going off of visually what they're kind of looking for. So right. Thank you. I mean, you know, that was really the intent, I think, was just to kind of document and kind of present the series in just a different way to like you said, matter of fact. I think it's really like, look, they're all there. All the facts are there. You can just right. compare the pictures. You can look at those things and kind of figure out, you know, why is it that way? You know, like what happened?
Well, it's like, it's again, I keep saying this, but Fire Walk with Me is the complete inverse of everything, right? Because you have, obviously, there's the the stuff that everybody notices, which is Deer Meadows, not Twin Peaks. It's the, you know, that thing. But I mean, down to the detail of like, okay, James pulls up to Laura's house and Leland's watching them. Well, in the movie, James calls Laura and makes the arrangement for the date. But we know from the series that it was actually Leland who called from Ben Horn's office, right? So, so even just the flipping of James and Leland, the fact that, you know, Chet Desmond, CD, Dale Cooper, DC, everything's just inversed. And that's when it dawned on me, because I remember thinking at the time, going, Lynch is usually not this careless. What is going on here? And then when you start noticing that there's a pattern to everything being flipped in that movie, then you start to go, okay, I think I get it. I mean, just on just one level, you feel like, okay, I get it. This is the antithesis of what we were expecting.
Well, and that's the thing, I think, and obviously, you know, it's infamous how it all played out, you know, with critics and such. But now that is my favorite Lynch film. Vertigo will always be my favorite film. That's going to be on the top of my list. Blade Runner's up there. I probably Fire Walk with Me is my number 3, and I just love it. It is like a warm blanket. It is just something about it. I love it so much because I held for 4 years a marathon, and it was in my parents' basement when I was in college, and it was during the breaks or whatever it is. And a buddy of mine in Ohio and I, we decorated the whole basement like the Red Room, put up red, drapes, and put in the chevron floor and everything like that. And we watched the series from noon on Saturday all the way to 5:30 on Sunday evening. And so when I watch Firewalk with Me, I always feel like it's that Sunday afternoon, like this real lazy, just feeling of like the sun. I don't know what it is, but that first 30 minutes alone is some of the best of Lynch. And that flipping on its head, that like you said, that the complete opposite of what you would expect. I can't get enough of the Fat Trout Trailer Park. I can't get enough of Hap's Diner. I just watched that again and again and again. And you have to think it was all conscious choices. And it was all something that, really he was destined to make it completely different than what people had.
And I think you could say the same thing about season 2 is different than season 1, and Firewalk with Me is different than the series, and season 3 is different than all of them. It's like every time we go back, it's a different tone, it's a different feeling, it's a different look at it. And it's funny because I think the reason why Firewalk with Me was really criticized for a long time, not just at the time it came out, because I'm sure you remember what it was like when it came out. It was like not even the Twin Peaks fans would go there. It's the fact that season 3 now exists, and because season 3 exists, then Firewalk with Me is easier to digest because there's more. Right. When you were left with, well, that's it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I remember my mom, I've said this before, my mom watched Firewalk with Me and just said, well, we knew all this. Like,
why rehash it? Like, why
are we bringing it back? But, my friend Hal, who will probably be joining us in a little bit, he says that Firewalk with Me is the bridge between 2 and 3. And obviously, I completely agree, because I've been saying for a while now that season 3 is, a multitude of things, but when you break it down to the core, like, what was the true purpose of season 3? This is my humble opinion, what I think the true purpose was. I think Mark Frost not having anything to do with Firewalk with Me was like, okay, I'd like to do something else, but I need to put my stamp and bring Firewalk with Me's into the canon. I need to be able to spin it. And I think Lynch was like, I need to redeem Firewalk with Me. And I think that if you look at it that way, because season 3 barely references the series, it's all Firewalk with Me if it references something. So I think that's kind of like what it came down to. It's like, we're gonna redeem this movie and make it essential, to the point that Criterion's putting it out now. So.
Exactly. And I think that you were right, a bridge too. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that interpretation. Yeah. Right.
And I still maintain that if they do come back for another incarnation or whatever, because you have to stop and wonder, okay, like, what is the purpose of putting the entire, and I mean the entire, Laura James conversation in the woods?
Yeah.
Right? Because they mentioned Donna, which is interesting because she's not mentioned in the series. But then when Mrs. Palmer knocks over the pictures and is stabbing Laura's picture, the only picture that remains on the stand there is Laura and Donna.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, you can say, okay, Laura's scream, she sees Cooper, so she, that's how they're going to tie it in. But then are you telling me that Cooper then is going to run about 6 miles to where she's going to jump off the bike? Right?
Right.
It's so bizarre. And it's like, well, if she always saw Cooper in the background, then she never would have died anyway. So I've had people say to me, why are people talking about Twin Peaks Day? Laura never died. Cooper. It's like, interesting. But yes, I agree with you though. Your tweet about it is one of the great entrances of, I think of, I know it's a TV show, but I consider Twin Peaks almost cinema. I mean, especially, the pilot was created as that as well. But I mean, that one shot of Cooper just driving in, he has to nail that huge monologue, and he does it. Like, sometimes it takes an actor a couple episodes to get into the vibe of the character. And he's just Cooper right from the start.
Oh, it's believable. It's so you're just enamored with it. I mean, there's so much delivered in that short monologue of him driving in, and it establishes so much. The pilot, I still watch the pilot in an awe, and I've seen it how many times now. There's just so, I mean, again, I think there's other great pilots, other great episodes of television out there, and that is just truly one of them. I mean, and like you said, very cinematic in it, but his delivery, his presence, immediately, just, wow, this guy is nothing like anything I've seen before on TV. He's straight-laced, kind of just the facts, but he just has this other like quirkiness about him. I don't know. It would, to me,
it's because he's down and dirty. He wants to get into the facts, but he's still not above admiring the nature.
Gets caught up in just the, like gets just distracted with the beauty of things and just the sound of this and just, and being very in touch with, I don't know, the environment. Now, is that a bleed over from Lynch's, being in the moment, experience this and that? Probably, infusing some of that. And obviously if Kyle has worked with Lynch enough, he kind of maybe picks up that vibe, but there's something about that entire scene.
It practically is Jeffrey Beaumont, a few years later, which is fine by me. Which is funny because I remember at the time before, when Fire Walk with Me was being made, I had heard that Diane was supposed to be in it. Right now, obviously, that in the script she's not. She just does this Charlie Brown wah 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 voice in the background. But it's funny because if you go back and like, if I found like these papers, I remember writing down in like 1991 going, well, there's only one person who can play Diane, and that's Laura Dern. Because she couldn't be in the show because back then it was movie stars didn't appear on TV. Right.
Yeah, there's definitely.
So I thought when there was Fire Walk with Me, I thought she would come back as Diane. And so if you go back and watch these videos that go back like 5-6 years, I'm saying, well, Diane's obviously Laura Dern. I know it's not confirmed, but it's Laura Dern, right? And then when they announced her as being Diane, I was like, well, that of course. I mean, it just there's no other person it could be, because when you see Jeffrey and Sandy and Blue Velvet in the diner, that to me is Cooper and Diane like having a malt after work.
Oh yeah, like very much like the foundation of all of that.
Right.
I'm super excited for the Criterion release of Blue Velvet, even though I have how many versions of it. I still love seeing it in theaters. I still love that. But such a foundation, I think, that bleeds over into then what became Twin Peaks.
Well, and we're also finally getting Blue Velvet Revisited.
Yeah,
which I've been wanting to see forever. I mean, because first it was called, I think, Frank Goes to Lumberton, and then they changed it to So I'm happy for that. Some people online are saying, well, how are they going to fit all that on one disc? I mean, because that's a lot of information. But I've had contacts inside Criterion say they're all coming. They're going to do the whole Lynch collection, which I'm trying to figure out how the heck they're going to do the straight story, because Disney never will source out to the Criterion.
That is also one of that's my second favorite Lynch film of all time. I watch it every fall, every September, post my birthday. I will put that thing on, and there's just something about it. I don't know what it is. I remember seeing it in theaters when I had just moved to Florida. And would love to see another transfer of that, because it's just such it's a very unique film. But it's between the music, Farnsworth's performance, just everything about it. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I have so many friends. I have so many friends who watch The Straight Story, and then they'll come to me and say, "Just might be his best film." Just might be. And for instance, when I'm sure you've heard this before, that so much of The Return seems like David Lynch doing his own retrospective of all of his works, right? Well, when Cooper wakes up and he says, you're a good man, Bushnell Mullins, it so much reminds me of Richard Farnsworth telling that neighbor going, I want to thank you for your kindness to a stranger for letting him stay in the yard. You know what I mean? It has that same,
it does.
Like, thank you. Like, that's like, he references The Straight Story in it too. I love
it. But there is just so many scenes in that film, and just I think it's the pacing, and coupled with just that feeling of autumn in the air that I don't know. I think there for me, a lot of it is music. A lot of it is just the feeling and the color and the vibe and so forth that you get from a Lynch film, the sound, all those pieces that kind of mix in with everything.
It's also generally about goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that he did it in between Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. So anybody who thinks, well, Lynch did Fire Walk with Me, it's dark film.
Yeah.
Okay, didn't go over very well for people. Okay, he's gonna double down with Lost Highway, which is, you know, really dark.
Yeah.
And so people are like, I mean, even though Lost Highway, you know, now has its fans, back then it was kind of a mixed reaction. Agreed. And then so it was like, okay, we know which way Lynch is going now. And then just do a complete about face with a G-rated Disney film.
Yeah.
But it's not. I remember working at this movie theater and we were playing it. And I was telling people, look, this isn't David Lynch doing Air Bud. Okay, just go in and check this out. But there were so many people, 50s, 60s, 70-year-old people who would come out of that theater, and I'm not kidding you, would start to make calls to relatives.
Yeah.
Not go see this movie, but like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while.
Right.
And I was like, look, regardless of cinema, I mean, the fact that Lynch, maybe he knows this, maybe he doesn't, was able to reconnect families that did not talk to each other for possibly years. That could be his greatest achievement. Just saying. In a world full of great achievements, that's a great achievement.
And I think the goodness piece is a very strong motif, a very, you know, a feeling, a vibe that you get from that. But, you know, I particularly saw it, you know, even more so going to the Festival of Disruption back in May of last year, you know, and just, I don't know, it made me look at Lynch's work a little differently and thinking about that, being connected to the world and helping connect and bring some goodness, even though his films can be very dark. My wife watches it and she's like, it's so violent, you know? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, there is an air of violence, but the world is also violent and strange and, you know, and such, but there's also this element of goodness. I think that Cooper brings a lot of that, you know, obviously into that kind of Boy Scout, you know, looking at the good and finding those kind of ways to, I don't know, share that. But yeah,
well, I mean,
I love Straight Story. It is still, it's just, I wish I could see it again in theaters, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Twin Peaks, you know, season 1 and 2 obviously has a lot of dark stuff in it, but but people generally remember that series as being like feel good.
Yeah.
Right. And and that is, I mean, I know Lynch only did a certain amount of episodes, but still, I mean, they created the template of how do you portray all this dark stuff, and yet you were able to just, you know, feel like you just had a pleasant time at TV on Thursday or Saturday night, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was unlike anything on TV.
Oh,
you know? And it was definitely, you know, and there was elements of soap opera-ness to it, but there was definitely a quirkiness about it and a feeling that, it was like, gee golly whiz, you know, this is great. And this is like the rose-colored 1950s look at the world. And there's towns that still exist like this. There's places out there that you'll find where, again, it's a small town feeling and everybody knows everybody. And there's a sense of that goodness that exists in that world, in that small town. And when something terrible happens, like the death of Laura Palmer, it just disrupts everybody's, you know, entire universe. But there was still that feeling of like you felt connected to those particular areas. I think that's, I don't know. I mean, so my love really went into college, and my college town was small, just like that. It was less than 4,000 people, you know, and so there was definitely a small vibe in the middle of a cornfield, you know, from that. So I don't know if I just kind of resonated and connected the points from Twin Peaks to the reality that I was living in at the time, but I could see that kind of same small town vibe, that kind of small town feel. And it just really, I think, maybe resonated with me. That's why I'm talking to you today about it here, you know, all these years later.
Well, I grew up in Monterey, California, which is where Big Little Lies is filmed. And it literally is Twin Peaks here. I mean, it's not Snoqualmie and North Bend, but it's on the West Coast. There's forest, there's small town. Everybody knows each other. I mean, the towns say America's last hometown on the sign when you drive in and things like that. So, I mean, I think that was the thing about Twin Peaks was it made, even though it seemed like another world, a distant world, it also made you feel like, well, this could happen in my town.
Yeah.
which of course, just brings the whole thing home.
Yeah.
But it's funny that we were talking about today is officially Twin Peaks Day, and the mayor of Snoqualmie just, issued a declaration declaring it Twin Peaks Day, which is kind of funny. I actually interviewed him about a year back in April 2017, and he seemed like a really nice guy. And then when I went up to visit Snoqualmie last year, everyone I met was just like, "Oh, I can't stand that mayor."
Can't stand.
Right, but he seemed like a nice guy to me, so I don't know. But anyways, so he is officially declared February 24th Twin Peaks Day today. So that's cool. It's because it reminded me, because I saw on your website you talk about going to the Twin Peaks Fest in '96, and the first time I went up in that area was 2003, I believe. Okay. And I mean, I wanted to go a decade earlier, just for whatever reason, just didn't. So I finally got there in 2003, which is about 8 years after you were there. And I'm looking around going, where are the Twin Peaks stuff? I mean, obviously there's the locations, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I had so many of the locals go, we're done with that show. We're done with it. None of the stores, nobody had anything. The diner cleared out everything. There wasn't anything there. And I was like going, hey, it's really cool to be up here, see all these cool places. But it was like, there's no Bob shirt you can buy. And I was like, this is really, and we had people just tell us like, that was like 15 years ago, I mean, I was like, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Right. And so now that it came back, it's kind of interesting to see that whole area like capitalize on it.
Oh, no joke. And so I went in summer '96, first time visiting that entire area. And I've been planning to go back ever since. I've never made it back that way. I've talked about it. We've talked about going back. Everything I've researched is all through Google Maps. That's about the closest I can get to, I think, the area. And not everything is mapped out on Google Maps. Right. Some of the areas are only have images from 2008 or 2007. So much has probably changed even more so in the region. But you're right. There was still a remnants of Twin Peaks stuff that was in the shops and still had a vibe. But again, it was only a couple years after Fire Walk with Me when it was there. The only thing I guess I regret with it, I still have yet to convert a bunch of VHS-C video, cassettes and so forth from a little handheld camcorder. I have to convert them to digital. I've been meaning to do it because it's all footage and all stuff I took during the fest. I hardly took any photos. I wish I would have taken more images of stuff. And I didn't know at the time, that I guess I'd still be here today. But I would have loved to capture just what it was like at those things, because it's evolved, and it certainly has moved on. Places that exist are no longer there. They're long gone. I'm thankful for being able to visit the places that we did, at the time. And even then I still didn't know the full extent of it.
Well, right. I mean, the sawmill is gone.
Oh yeah.
Your picture at least has some remnants of it, it's so funny because one thing I love about the internet is connecting with people, because I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, because the only thing that was released of Twin Peaks at that time was season 1 had a VHS release.
Yep.
And then there was the Laserdisc, which I could not afford because they were like $300 for like 8 episodes. Yeah. But I to this day, I still have the original broadcasts, recorded. They look great. I love them. And you can see the whole Gulf War, like start and stop.
Unfold probably. Yeah.
in like 2 tapes worth. It's pretty amazing. Them advertising Wild at Heart is coming like during season 1, which is really funny when I read about how, Lynch was making Wild at Heart during season 2. It's like, no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. I can't stand when I read articles that say that, I know that these people are not true fans.
You haven't researched it enough. It's all out there.
Yeah, he won the Palme d'Or when season 1 was playing.
Yeah.
So he was done with it. Anyway, so I personally think that, like, where was he during season 2? I think that he just took a hiatus. I think he just took a break and was just like, let me just stay over here for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it does crack me up when he says in these interviews, like, they never should have solved Laura's murder.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't buy that for 1 second. Because if that was true, then Fire Walk With Me, he made a whole movie about who killed Laura.
Who killed her.
So I think that's clever retrospective thinking there.
Well, I think that sense of mystery and the ongoing mystery of not solving that and keeping that momentum going, and the kind of mystery that's in the woods and that kind of thing. I mean, I can see that, but I think also there comes a point, and well, obviously even more so today, where people want the resolution and they want it to be solved faster than what it actually is, or what it should be.
But if you break it down from pilot to Leland dying, it's what 16 episodes in a pilot.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Veronica Mars goes 22 episodes before they solve it. So I mean, they still solved it before a full season of TV.
Right.
So I mean, but there's just no way. I mean, because I remember at the time reading that Kyle had signed a contract for 5 years. Right. So that would have taken Twin Peaks to 1995. If they were still solving Laura Palmer's murder in 1995, people would have thrown their TVs out the window. I mean, people were ready to throw them out the window at the beginning of season 2.
Right.
Listen, maybe today you could get away with that, but back then there's no way you could have gone 3 seasons without solving her murder.
Well, wouldn't they today? They would have done it in like 6 episodes is the first part of the season, and done a 9-month break, and then another 6 episodes. It would have lasted. They could have stretched it out maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, if they had done season 2 on the par of season 1, just made it all killer, no filler, 7 episodes in and out, maybe there would have been a 3rd season. But they said no, we're going to go full 22, and. I'm a Twin Peaks apologist. I will maintain there is not a single bad episode in the whole series. I mean, you could say I don't like this subplot or this and that, but the scenes by themselves, no matter if you don't like the subplot or not, the writing is always good, the acting's always good, the direction's always good. You may just not like where certain things go, but you can't fault the filmmaking of it. It was always stellar.
No, for the longest time, it was always the James Evelyn storyline that it's that post solving the murder before the arrival of Wyndham Earl on those episodes there. But those are probably some of my favorite episodes. There's something about that, the nod to film noir, the story. I don't know. There's elements and moments within those episodes that I just really gravitate to. And on the whole, I think it just makes it adds to the quirkiness, the uniqueness, and that kind of status that Twin Peaks is today. And even season 3, and I know that there's some folks out there that didn't like where the direction was or how they were able to return to Twin Peaks. The scenes, obviously, some were longer than others. Maybe it should be. But on the whole, as I looked back and watched it again, and then had another marathon and watched it again, and I've been doing all this. It's really grown on me even more so. And it complements, and I think it fits in so well today from both the original seasons. There's just uniqueness to it. And I think that's ultimately what I love the most is when you have a series that is just unique and never before seen, and something that you can revisit again and again and find different interpretations or different ways to look at it. I think it's like Lynch's work in general. That's what I love, being challenged to think.
Sure.
It's not just mindless television, which is great. And there's episodes and there's things out there and that have that. But I like the ability to sit and talk and debate and think about it, in some way, and how it all fits in.
And you could say that he's actually gotten more like that as the years go on. I mean, when you look back at Blue Velvet, it's like a stage play.
Yeah.
And there's mystery in there, just like there's mystery in the season 1 of Twin Peaks. But at the end of the day, it's pretty much all solved. I mean, and so it's like you can enjoy being in that world, but it's still contained. Whereas I think, when you get into, his Hollywood trilogy of Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire, and then season 3, he's gotten more. I mean, you could say that season 3 is all open-ended. There's nothing that's really solved except the fact that they got the doppelganger back in the lodge and Cooper's.
Correct. Yeah.
That's the only thing.
But I think you're right. I think there was these moments, the moments within, particularly Mulholland Drive. I thought there's that the whole Club Silencio and just the whole thing with that, and just I remember just being dumbfounded in the same aspect of how I was dumbfounded when I saw the Red Room sequences, you know, in the original series. Just that, wow, that sense of wonder and awe of like, I don't even know what's going on, and I need to dissect this in my brain for a little bit and talk about it. But I just love getting caught up in it. And that's, I think, what he does so well is transporting you to a different place and a different, just it's like, you know it, but it's so off centered a little bit. But it's that uncomfortable feeling that I think I enjoy a lot, you know, watching that on the big screen.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think if Criterion made one fatal flaw in the Mulholland Drive set is not putting the pilot on there.
Agreed.
Because I mean, I have a bootleg of it.
Yeah,
and I would love to just listen, just from an editorial standpoint. I think it would be great film school for people to see how he changed it. But let's see. But yeah, it's funny though, because you know, you read all these theories, and some, you know, some places or some people like go on these like 25-page thesis papers about stuff about David Lynch stuff. I just have never been that way. I've always been someone who just lets it kind of just wash over me, and I just take whatever I feel at that moment. And it's like, you know, it's almost like Kubrick in a way, where it's, you know, at different stages in your life, you'll read into it different ways. And I don't think that there is one thing of like, well, this means this. I mean, I mean, it could mean that way for you, right? But that doesn't mean that, you know, you know, someone who's researching like, what does Twin Peaks mean? You know, and I think this is why people get so territorial about it too, is because I feel like it's become almost religion for a lot of people, much like Star Wars has become religion for a lot of people. And I mean, so much so that Lynch is doing Festival Disruption. He's doing like his own TM things. So it's like, he's turned himself, which is really funny, having grown up with him. I never thought that David Lynch would turn himself into a brand.
Oh yeah.
You know, because back then he was just this idiosyncratic filmmaker that drew an angry dog comic strip over here and was doing a Fox TV show over here and you know, and things like that. And now he's like, you know, I remember just davidlynch.com and, you know, all that stuff. And and I remember a few months into it, I moved and I couldn't afford the website anymore. And so I called to cancel my membership. And I don't know who I talked to, but there was this lovely lady on the phone and was just like, listen, I understand that you want to cancel, but is there anything we can do better that would keep you around? And I was like, I just can't afford it right now. But I love this fact that she was like trying to understand, like, well, what are we doing wrong? Like, what can we do? And I was like, this is a guy who surrounds himself with people who care. You know, so much so that I remember when I interviewed Sabrina Sutherland, I asked her, I said, what was your reaction when you read the script for season 3 and you realized David Lynch wrote himself the lead role? Which, I mean, if you really look about, I mean, Cooper is either incapacitated as Dougie or is driving as Mr. C, and David Lynch's character pretty much drives the narrative for a good chunk of that series.
But you know, I think, you know, and you hit on a great point about looking at it differently through the lens of time, you know, and that there are clearly external factors that have happened in my life and your life and so forth that probably look at, you revisit something differently and how you felt about it at that time, just with age and wisdom, you know, you just have a completely different appreciation of it much later, you know, from that. I think that goes with some of the best cinema out there, some of the best television shows out there, that in the moment it may seem like, oh, whatever, but at given time and people to be able to simmer and let it digest and so forth, you approach it differently and you look at it differently. And to me, that's some of the best, I think, that holds up, you know, and why people are still, you know, people, you know, including my mother, have asked, you know, why are you still obsessed with this show? You know, I mean, here it is years later.
Right.
But I think it just, because it holds up. And I think it's also, you hit on the point also about the people you meet. And I do have to credit the internet as toxic as some places in fandom can be, I've always had a genuine respect for others within the Twin Peaks community, because there is that connection that, especially some of the original fans and so forth have brought. There was just always that, I don't know, there was something about it that I've felt within this community that I think keeps me coming back for more, from that. And I liked being able to connect with those folks, whether it be the Fan Fest, Festival Disruption, or just on Twitter, online, whatever the case is. People visiting, here in the state of Florida where I am, whatever the case is. It's always great to just sit and chat and just have a common connection like that. And I think that's what, maybe it's the goodness of Twin Peaks. Maybe that's what brings people together from that. I don't know.
Well, thank goodness that season 3 happened, because then you don't look like quite the nutcase by still saying you like the show, because you can say, listen, there was just a recent season. Okay. I'm not just still going off 1995 too. All right.
But, I probably could have spent the rest of my life still with just the first 2 seasons in a movie, that just still dissecting it and thinking about it and just being enamored with it, and there's little nuggets of things that happened over time. The music being released, I still cannot believe that we got all of those tracks from like the archive, the unreleased thing. I never in a bajillion years. This is the guy who went through and ripped all the audio out of the DVDs and tried to clean them up and tried to get all the tracks. I was trying to, every single thing. And then to have great pristine recordings, that was such a blessing. And music was my gateway to Twin Peaks, and the music that was, for the series and such. And so to have that, but again, I probably could have just been fine with that, and I never would have thought of season 3, that. And you're right. Now it's become something I can continue and share with others like that.
Right. And I think that season 3 is such a completely different animal than season 1 and 2. So, you can look at it from all different new angles here. Yeah, it's funny because David Lynch is somebody who, again, going back in time, I remember when he would come out and say, I hate VHS. Yeah. I only like Laserdisc, and I will never, he declared this, I will never release deleted scenes.
Right? It was the film is what it is. Even Straight Story, I think, is presented as one chapter. There's no chapters on the disc. Yeah. It's just like you watch the film from beginning to end. That's all you do.
The first one that he purposely put chapter stops in was Inland Empire, because people told him some people need to use the bathroom. Which, given the length of that film, and I don't mean just the 3-hour length, I mean the internal length of the film. Is no offense, okay, but it feels like 25 hours long.
Oh, it is definitely, of all the films, probably the most challenging, of that. And I've only seen it a handful of times because I have to watch it.
It's a running joke on this channel that I have fun with kind of trashing Inland Empire, but at the same time, though, as I said, if Criterion released it tomorrow, I'd be the first one buying it.
Oh, no joke.
I have the two. I saw it in the theater. Yep. I paid for it. When it came out on DVD, I bought it. I went to Borders and picked it up, and it has this like strange cover that like nobody else seems to have, which makes me feel like I went to the Red Room and picked it up. And it's just like I like it and respect it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's just I cannot sit through it.
It's tough. It is a tough film.
And so I admire everybody who can. Yeah. But sometimes I go, you're fooling yourselves if you're telling me that thing makes any sense whatsoever, even on Lynch's level. And I think in a way, season 3, even though it's much more classically filmed than Inland Empire, correct, I think it does take a page out of Inland Empire in terms of, well, you don't know. As you were watching it, you didn't know quite what timeline we were watching. Like was Dougie like 10 years earlier, or you didn't know, because it was like, well, there's this housing crisis, and he was in the box, and it started moving backwards. So like maybe he went back a decade, and so he's not in the right time, and all. Yeah. And so I remember for a long time we were talking about how we were probably on different timelines. Yeah, and of course that was shot to shit when Jade mailed the hotel key and Van Horn got it.
but you're right. I think there was definitely that piece of it, and I think there was almost in some aspects put together scenes or moments that maybe somehow were combined. And maybe they were supposed to be there for sure. Maybe they just were there just for the sake of it being there, and in Lynch's mind, for whatever reason, he could have been caught up because he liked the butterfly that day. And so he wanted to shoot, again, it was just one of those things, like he just saw it and was caught up in the moment, those kind of the happy accidents, the things that just come about when producing, such a piece.
Right. It makes me wonder, what was Dwayne Dunham's original cut like before Lynch went in there and started playing with it?
I know. I'd love to see, obviously, I think there's others out there too, would love to see the Bible, the original, script to screen, what was there, because you have to figure, okay, well, what we saw was not everything, because there had to be more stuff there, unless they were being very frugal, and I know that cost and production was certainly one of those things, renegotiating, getting whatever the case is. So maybe they were, but I imagine that there was probably some nuances or some changes that maybe happened along the way.
And the script was being rewritten all through the whole thing.
Right.
Because even people who were there on set told me Lynch spent the first morning rewriting the whole thing.
Exactly.
So it wasn't at all. Because one of the biggest things that we brought up several times on this thing is that when they shot the finale, right, which always cracks me up because they shot it in front of that entire neighborhood.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I remember we showing the footage. We showed someone's periscoped it, right? And so we showed the footage on this channel and saying, "Hey, don't worry, this is not the ending. This is just some random moment. Maybe this is the third cousin that was that Laura with the red hair. Maybe he's bringing." But I kept insisting it's not the ending. And then when it was the ending, I was like, "Shit, it was the ending." but
it's interesting how they did shoot it and how they put it all together.
Well, after that, if you noticed, after that, they closed the set and they moved everything back to California because Zoe McLean, that was she's the young girl and the clerk, right? Mm-hmm. She told me that they were supposed to shoot that up there, but after the whole Everett situation, it got moved to Los Angeles. So they closed up shop and got the hell out of there. went behind closed doors and never came back out like Willy Wonka, but yeah, it was and
I'm sure, and I get it. Especially, when you work on a project and you want to, it's your baby, and you have vision, you have, what you wanted. I totally, I think I can understand and appreciate that desire to be in control of just those elements and keeping that surprise. And I totally understand that. I really do, from that. But
what's interesting is that people, they filmed and they talked about like what was being done that day. But what they didn't reveal was something that I learned about on my last trip.
Yeah.
Was when people told me that down the street, Balthazar Getty's trailer was there.
Oh, how about that?
In case Lynch felt inspired. Now he didn't film anything,
right?
But if you put 2 and 2 together, then that has to mean, logically, of course, and we're talking about Lynch here, so this
right.
That Red is the grandson.
I could see that.
It has to be because he does the whole coin trick and blah blah blah. And so I could see him answering the door with Alice Treatment or something like that and playing off of that. I think that would have been cool. I really do. Looking back, I like it the way it is, don't get me wrong, but I think that would have helped some people go, oh, it's connecting a little bit more.
Yes. Yeah. The Chow Fun thing and the, Miss Tremont, all that kind of stuff. I get it. But, there was definitely those elements, and there was those moments throughout season 3 of, oh, okay, that's a connection. Oh, I can get home on that, especially obviously being such a more passionate fan, but to the passing fan, maybe not so much, being able to make those things. Yeah. It would have been great to see it. It was funny. I was watching that ending scene in part 18. And if you look very far in the distance, you can see movement of people that were probably watching the scene. It's very faint, from that, but you could see very much in the distant, that they're just kind of like shadows, little movements of back and forth. And I could only, I would have loved to be there. I would have loved to be able to see it. Kicking myself that I probably I just never made my way out that way.
But I remember people telling me at the time. Yeah, and I know they shot what they shot there. Mm-hmm. But I remember people telling me at the time that they brought Cheryl Lee into the house to scream. And I thought, are they going to kill her again in the living room? Like, what the? Which is, I don't know. It just cracks me up that they shot the whole ending in front of the whole neighborhood. I just like they could have easily just said close set, everybody, but no, come on down. Yeah. And again, I think that shows the cuteness and naiveness of Lynch. That like, no one's gonna, because he's thinking about Fire Walk with Me. There was no internet back then. People had their Polaroid, and now they're hanging up at the Double R Diner. Yeah. But it's a different time now, Mr. Lynch. People, I mean, in fact, they're live.
And that is certainly,
Good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was going to say they were live streaming the whole thing.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't just like someone uploaded a video. I mean, they were periscoping it live on Twitter.
You have to wonder, and so much of it. I mean, I love all the social media. I love the internet connectivity, the instantaneousness of so many things, right, that are out there. But then there's also just that sense of discovery that, and you see it. And the strange part for me is that I look back and I go, well, yeah, I remember going to like the library and like checking out magazines or reading magazines and articles and that kind of thing. Obviously wrapped in plastic was like the Bible. I mean, that was the lifeline through most of the 90s into the 2000s of like keeping content, because there just wasn't that sense out there. There wasn't the ease and ability. I mean, if it wasn't, for, again, Google Maps and Street View and that kind of stuff, I would never be able to do the blog that I have today, because it just, it's all at my fingertips. That kind of sense of finding it and so forth. I have to, I think back to like in Twin Peaks and the folks that pulled that together, Charles, Travis, and so forth, and just went out and like literally had just a binder of stuff and just would go out and try to find these things without using the Google Maps and without using the technology, and trying to figure out where these places are and such. That sense of like almost analog or going back in time, and think maybe it would be interesting to see how season 3 would have been perceived, received, and so forth. If it was, I mean, obviously it probably wouldn't have been the same version as today, but if it was back then, and what, obviously the debates and the conversations and all the stuff that comes from television today and the shows that are out there, the Westworlds and the various other things where people just dissect and, kind of recap and such. It would have been interesting to not have that and just kind of discover it almost on your own, without having any other sense of community. But then at the same time, I flip it and go, well, but I like the sense of community. I like being able to share and dissect. I think it makes the viewing experience even more, even more, and it enriches it.
Yeah, the only thing that drove me nuts during season 3 were like when big websites would say, Amanda Seyfried is Laura Palmer. She's the new Laura Palmer. And I was like, no, she's not. She's a girl she's Shelley's daughter. There's no, and then of course the next couple episodes, she's like not even there anymore. So it was like when I would just wish more people would be like, hey, this is what we like. This is what we're curious about. This is what maybe we're kind of puzzled over. When big websites were coming out making declarations saying this is what it is, these poor innocent people who have never watched Twin Peaks before, who are trying to understand this thing, they must have been on a roller coaster that whole time, not knowing what the hell was going on. But my favorite thing about season 3 probably is this, that in 2017, it started up when it came out. I remember that Sunday night it came out. Yeah. And sitting down 5 minutes before it started, still not knowing what on earth I was going to watch.
Yep.
And the fact that, I knew it was called Twin Peaks.
Right.
I knew that much. But the fact that they kept underground anything of the story. Where almost to the last minute, I still had no idea what was going to happen.
Agreed.
And I remember thinking, and we've talked about this before on the show, but I remember thinking, okay, there's going to be some sort of like introductory mystery that will maybe like almost like Star Wars, where like, you know, you'd have like some new people, and then that would they would discover that Agent Cooper has been missing. And I figured, hey, they're dropping 4 episodes the first night, so that has to mean that Cooper gets out before the 4 episodes, because I thought that's a cliffhanger. But the moment it begins with Cooper talking to the giant or fireman or whatever you want to call him, and I remember thinking, like, holy crap! I thought it was going to take about 8 or 9 episodes before new viewers dropped off. Yeah. I saw from that first scene, I was like, okay, Lynch and Frost are basically saying you can stick around, new viewers, but this isn't made for you. and I was stunned that here Showtime poured all this money into the show that basically in the first minute alienates 2/3 of the people watching the show right away. Which is like, hey, original fans, this is for you.
Yeah. It didn't ease into it. It didn't do this kind of setup of anything along those lines. I felt the same exact way. That sense of not knowing and then just being, wow. I mean, this is, and again, it did feel very much like it was written for me, you know, being a fan and being someone who's been a long time and so forth. But the fact that, you know, Showtime relinquished that control, just took a risk, you know, and said, hey, we're going to see how this goes. And, you know, I still think, again, that I think back to, and again, 2017 and that just that entire summer, you know, leading into everything, and how much the anticipation I look forward to every week, looking forward to seeing, you know, seeing the, and yes, while there was definitely those sites out there that were, you know, predicting this and trying to do a recap of this and that and so forth, there was still that sense of like getting donuts on Sunday, preparing my donuts, you know, my donut run and my cherry pie run, you know, and just in getting, you know, on it and all the attire on and all that kind of stuff and getting ready for it, you know, and just that kind of anticipation. It was such a great feeling, and something that I, you know, again, not having that for so long, that sense of anticipation and mystery from that, I think it really just added to the richness of the experience.
And especially since every week we still didn't know what we were going to get week to week. And I mean, it was so intense. You talking about cherry pie. I couldn't even eat during the episode because I was so like nervous that any minute something horrible was going to happen. I mean, it was so intense. I couldn't even watch Game of Thrones that summer.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I'm just all in Twin Peaks this summer. Yeah. No one bother me. This is what I'm going to do. But I remember when that infamous episode 8 came out, and then we get the flashback, you know, we go back in time, and I remember saying to my wife, going, "This can't be the rest of the episode, right?" Like, he's really good. And then about 10 minutes in, I was like, "Okay, I think this is going to be the rest of the episode." But personally, I don't think the episode went far enough because I wanted to see Leland get inhabited by Bob. I thought we were going to get that. Yeah. And when Cooper was going to go back in time, I didn't think about him stopping Laura from getting killed. I thought he was going to do the Lost thing and go back and stop the bomb from going off. Yeah. Because then he would obliterate the whole thing. There'd be no mother, no Bob, no Leland possession, no Laura. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought, well, why would you go back and save Laura when you could stop the whole thing? You could stop Teresa Banks from getting killed. You could stop everything.
Right.
But I was nervous. I swear to God, I was nervous that the last episode 18 was going to be just a woodsman cracking people's skulls, and that would be it. You know. And I was really hoping that Freddy with his green glove was going to start crushing woodsman skulls. That's what I was hoping for. And I mentioned that to Jake Wardle, and he goes, "That would have been brilliant." I said, "Yes, it would have been. I would have loved to have seen when the woodsmen were trying to resuscitate Mr. C. If Freddy just walked up and started killing them all." You know?
Yeah. And I watch. So again, I've watched it now, marathoned it a couple of times. season 3. And again, there's definitely feeling the beats, that go along with it. And obviously part 8 is such a unique stopping point from that. But then there's these other things. But then that part, 17 into 18, really more so. It's just like a completely other thing, and I liked it because I was like, oh, I want that to continue. I like where this direction's going with it. I just thought it just had a different vibe, a feel, and so forth. I always wondered, and again, obviously we saw a lot of that. Could Twin Peaks be more than just Twin Peaks, the town, which took, that was so much of just season 1 and 2, and Firewalk with Me was all just in the town. Is Twin Peaks more the brand? Is it the, the overarching, it's the root of it all, but, layering in Philadelphia and Las Vegas and other places, from that, Odessa and that, is there more? I like that approach, or like being able to expand it beyond that.
No, totally. I like the fact that it went global.
Yeah.
In this one, which was great. The only thing that bothers me about that was I wish that Badalamenti, because you're a music person, had written more music.
Yeah.
Because I don't like being in Buckhorn and hearing music from Deer Meadow, because that's Deer Meadow's music, not Buckhorn's music.
Yeah, that's the iconic motif there. Yeah, no, totally.
Right. That's okay. Listen, I know listen, I know that's a nitpick, but I'm sorry if you have it. Call it the Deer Meadow Shuffle. It should not be in Buckhorn. Let's get the Buckhorn Shuffle.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. And I think that there was some elements of that I think, and folks like myself included, that were anticipating or hopeful for more of those. Again, the archive part 2, where there's even more stuff out there. And I think what we're left with, again, is still some great tracks. And what they released is gorgeous, phenomenal music. And just really connects to the series and then the film, and it's great for me. But you're left with, and again, what I noticed, particularly in Lynch's episodes in the original first 2 seasons, very sound driven, very, there's a mood in the air and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. There's kind of undertones as opposed to strict just musical notes and tunes and so forth that you remember. But the music was, I think, again, such a, and at the time when it aired, it had to be that between the music that was so catchy and just this kind of, again, that 50s, influence type, tracks to all the stuff that goes along with it. That's, I think, why maybe the world just gravitated to it, because it just kind of easily identify and such. And we didn't necessarily get that same kind of, I think, musical feeling or vibe in season 3,
which I think just calls attention to itself on purpose. But I think that's why when people say to me, I think I like season 1 and 2 better, only because it's so, you could just put it on as background, or you can watch it. It just kind of rolls over, as it goes on. Whereas season 3, it just by the way it's created, you have to be engaged. You can't really put it on the background and just let it just be there, because it demands you pay attention to it. Hello, are you frozen? Well, hopefully, Stephen will come back. Hello? Are you back? There? Are you back?
I may be. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just.
You almost turned into.
I know. I think I was like. I think it just. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I don't know if you heard my last point or not, but it's just that some people have said that season 1 and 2 is easier for them to watch because it's so just kind of rolls over with the music, and it's so comfortable. Right. And season 3 kind of, it demands you having to be engaged.
Well, the silence, and to me, that's the thing that actually I like in my life now, is just the quietness. We moved into this house. My wife and I just moved in here about almost 2 months ago, coming from an apartment where I've lived for the past 8-9 years and that such, and I forgot how quiet a house can be, the silence that comes along with it, but it's almost peaceful, and it to focus and think and that kind of thing. And so there's elements of that silence within season 3 that actually I think are like music in itself, that just contribute to the mood and experience that you find there. So I actually do I appreciate it a lot more. I don't know if I would have appreciated it back in the 90s, kind of thing. I don't know if I think I would have been caught up in the music and the, all that kind of stuff. And obviously being such a fan of it, but I do like the quietness. I think
again, and that's Lynch, the filmmaker now, as opposed to Lynch in 1991. I mean, because what I've heard is that if they had done season 3 in 1991, they would have gotten Cooper out pretty fast, and we would have just gone right back to normal.
Yep.
So, all right, so let me ask you the complicated question of, do you feel like there will be another chapter, regardless of whatever TV movie, another 6-episode limited series? Do you see them doing that? And maybe let me just throw out my 2 cents first, and that is, back when it first ended, or season 3 ended, I thought, well, the last 2 episodes felt like the premiere of season 4 than the conclusion of season 3.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I mean, obviously it depends if Lynch and Frost want to do it, but I think it was going to come down to, well, are people still talking about it? Are the awards, kind to it? That type of thing. The fact that it kind of was nominated and then shut out, and then other, and then Kyle was shut out, and this and that. I'm almost wondering if that comes into the negotiation table of like, well, hey, you want to do season 3 your way. We let you do your way. We didn't get the awards that we thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
So is there some wiggle room here? I wonder if those conversations are taking place, or whether it's just not even been brought up. I mean, do you think Showtime is just happy with running their little Twin Peaks store and that's it? Or do you think they would want more?
Well, I think to me, I go to like content, and so if you're looking at programming, and I'm not in TV, but I think of like, again, you're putting together great content and something that people are talking about. I mean, clearly people talked about it. I mean, it talked about it. It was definitely on the critics list. It was definitely on that. You got to wonder in these day and age with the awards that are out there, is it that time, again, makes you appreciate it even more. So, 20 years from now, we're still talking about season 3 because it was that experience. It may not have got the instantaneous rewards, which are so sexy and all that kind of stuff, but it's that time that makes it just critically acclaimed. I mean, again, I think of my other favorite show that's right up there, The Prisoner, from 1960s, on BBC. Again, 17 episodes, 18 episodes is not that much. And yet over time, it has become such an iconic, program, and something I absolutely love. Is almost on par. Twin Peaks will be more, but it's definitely up there.
But I think that's why season 3 for us original fans was so powerful in many ways, because I think you need, again, I'm not trying to diss new fans, but I think you needed to have some gap in time between season 2 and season 3 to kind of really understand the idea of lost years.
Yeah.
And so listen, I don't think that Twin Peaks is ever going to go away, because it's something that you can continuously revisit and come back to in different ways and different stories. I do think that we have not seen the last of Twin Peaks in our lifetime. But I'm just curious. I want to like peel back the red curtain, if you will, and be like, is it really Lynch and Frost's decision of like, hey, we want to do season 4, great, greenlit? Or is Showtime gonna kind of come back and counter offer and say, listen, you need you owe us some of this. If we're gonna go here, you got.
Well, I guess that's the real question. I mean, in Showtime's eyes, perhaps they're looking at it like, again, we are innovative in our programming, and we're going to take risks like this and bring. Because on the holistic view, wow, you're really taking another look at Showtime because they're doing something that maybe other people aren't doing from that. I do wonder though, from a perspective, and this is where I guess maybe some of that earlier point about the world building and so forth, is Twin Peaks, Cooper, Laura, that whole story? Is it all of the fight with Bob and all that kind of stuff? Is that all of it, or is it something bigger? Could they bring back it in some version of those, but completely different characters, different way to, is it Twin Peaks because of those characters, or is it Twin Peaks because of the mood and the feeling and the wonderful and strangeness and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it?
I think that you can do other stuff, but having somebody as Kyle as your anchor helps.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's why, he was just about to leave in the middle of season 2, and all of a sudden the Mounties come in and say, no, you're under arrest and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it would have been interesting to see what season 2 would have been like without Cooper if he had left town.
Yeah. Like what do you leave it? I guess in some aspects, like I think of True Detective, and like the individual stories, the True Detective type thing. But is there?
Listen, if they went back and did a whole season of young Gordon Cole and Philip Jeffries' first Blue Rose case, yes, you could do it, right? There are little stories in there that you can do, and that I think that it would be far enough away from Cooper that people would be okay with it.
Right.
You kind of take the Fargo approach, right? Where you do do season 2 back in time. You can do all that. And I think, but if you were just to do another modern day Twin Peaks story, I don't think you can really do it now without Cooper even playing some role. But if you did it in the past, or something of that nature, or if you told the story of Leland coming to terms with the fact that he's half Bob, right? You could do stuff like that, and that could be really fascinating as well. It's funny though, because I remember a long time ago watching this documentary about Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. And Universal Pictures made that film, and Eric Idle went in and pitched it to them with like a 6-line poem, and they were like, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's greenlight that." And he couldn't believe that they greenlit this movie, So years later, he said to the head of Universal, "Thank you so much for greenlighting Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Why did you do that?" And the head of Universal said, "Well, I knew that if I signed Monty Python, I could sign any comedian in the world to be with our studio." And I almost think that's what happened with Twin Peaks. I think Showtime signed Twin Peaks thinking it would then bring in all this amount of talent to their network. Hello?
Sorry about that again.
Oh, so you missed the whole thing.
I did totally. The documentary. I'm waiting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, sorry to repeat, but so there was a documentary on the Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Eric Idle tells a story about how he went into the studio and pitched it as he just said a 6-line poem, and the head of Universal greenlit the movie, and he couldn't believe it. And then years later, he thanked the head of Universal, like, "Whoa, that was pretty brave of you. Why did you greenlight that movie?" And the head of Universal said, "Well, I knew that if I signed Monty Python, I could sign any comedian in the world to come work for Universal Pictures." And so I'm almost thinking that was Showtime's stance, which was, hey, if we sign Lynch and Frost and we say, hey, you can do whatever you want here and we're going to leave you alone, we will start to bring in talent to us that might first go to HBO, and we'll get our pick. And I think that while they wanted to be in business with Lynch and Frost and do Twin Peaks, I also think that it was a calculated move to bring in more creatives that normally would have gone to HBO instead of Max first. So I thought in that case, it's really smart. But then that also made me think, well, now that they're getting these talents and these other shows, and they are getting some acclaim now that they weren't getting before, is Twin Peaks something they're even still interested in doing, or is it something they just like doing pop-up shops for?
I understand. Yeah. And again, I guess that comes down to the potential of the story. The potential of, can you get that same momentum? If we have, and again, speculation, right? Twin Peaks come back next year, 2020, right? We're going to have a limited run, 8-episode, kind of thing. Will they capture that same momentum, the critical acclaim, the various eyes on that? Again, in it, what's the value and what's that worth, you know, in terms of the content? Is it a gamble to attract others? I mean, what's the strategic thing? Is it just storytelling because Showtime wants to, you know, be, you know, a cutting edge and look, we can attract unique stories. We have these different ways to do that. Yeah, it's an interesting play to see like what was the strategic value, I guess, you know, behind all that. I mean, as a fan, yeah, clearly I'd be happy, really, quite frankly, you know, to have any, and it's not that I need the story to continue. If the story doesn't continue and this is it, and this is all, and I have for the rest of my life, I still have a lot to dissect. I still have a lot to appreciate. I still have a lot to value and, you know, and look at, because I had that 25-year experience already, you know, of doing that. This just adds in another 18 hours to more to examine. It makes my blog writing. Go ahead.
Actually, 16 hours and 30 minutes.
Oh, that is. Thank you.
I threw it all on an editing timeline. Let me tell you, it's only 16 hours and 30 minutes.
So, you know, but again, it would make writing for the blog a lot easier because I didn't have to go through another 16 hours of episodes to try to find this and that. But at the same time, I just think, you know, I'm grateful for those hours they had. And yeah, of course, I think anybody would love to, you know, that's a fan of something, wants to revisit it, wants to be able to go back and share those memories or have those feelings again. Yeah, I'd love to have Twin Peaks Sundays again where I'm getting donuts and, you know, I still get my, you know, I got my cherry pie. I'm still eating this and still doing, you know, things like that. But again, there was a sense of wonder and feeling, I think, evolved together. It'd be interesting to see what their future plans are when it comes to that kind of storytelling. If that's the way that the businesses are going, the Netflixes and the, you know, Amazons and the various things, are they looking at telling these succinct stories or looking to sustain those things over a period of time? It's interesting to see what the long-term play is for that. And that I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a running joke on this channel that the 9 episodes they were planning that they just used the same scripts and just made every scene 3 times as long to make it 18 episodes. Because if you look at it, it's like got the I'm not trying to knock it or anything, but I'm saying it does have the story of maybe 10 episodes.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But it's just that they want to live in that world so much that it just naturally extends.
You add the feeling, the longer cuts or the padding or whatnot to make it more of that, or let you linger in it longer. Yeah, I can see that.
And I think it really comes down to again, and you got to be careful because sometimes I say things and people think I'm bashing something. I'm not. No. I just don't think that Lynch and Frost knew what to do with Cooper and the doppelganger in terms of they knew that Cooper eventually was going to get out, and there was going to be some sort of confrontation of some sort. But that's why I think it happens in the first like couple episodes and the last episode, and everything else is Dougie in between. Because I just don't. I mean, what were they going to do? Build it up to a big fight between Kyle MacLachlan and Sting again? You know, I think that they kind of say, okay, well, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. But in the middle, we can really play. Yeah. And I think that's where it almost seems like that's where their real passion was. And like I would say, episode 4 to episode 17, like somewhere in there. And then like, I don't know. I'm not bashing. I'm just saying it just seemed like they didn't have like a long-term like story of like Cooper hunting down the doppelganger over 12 episodes or something like
that. Well, you wonder, is that, that version of storytelling, is that more akin to the Blue Velvet, if you will, where there's a play, as like again, beginning, middle, end, kind of feeling to it, or is it more of the what we got, which was again elements of those things, and there was kind of interwoven with stuff, but it is more of a feeling or an environment, a world that you're entering into, and you do have to linger a little bit to take it all in. It would be interesting to see. And again, that's that I would have loved to have be the fly on the wall for the original conversations, and then what was the thought, like what was the, hey, we're thinking about doing this, I have this idea, I want to kind of revisit this world. Time has passed, so I look at it differently. What was the catalyst, and how has the world shaped the view of what we got today versus maybe if this would have been done 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, because some of the Dougie stuff,
yeah,
it seems like, well, that's Lynch and Frost during On the Air. You know, it seems like that that kind of humor coming in. And I don't think any viewer was expecting Dougie to last that long. But I do think that it was kind of an in joke that he came out in episode 3 and then became Cooper again in 15. So like the 350. It was like such a joke. And I think that they even had to kind of cheat a little bit to get there, because there's that one episode where Cooper's only seen for one scene when Sonny Jim throws the ball in his head.
Throws the ball in his head, yeah.
Right. And so I think they were like, well, we got to get to 15, but we got to stay starring Colin McLaughlin. So let's just put in this one scene here, which makes no sense, because considering that he's still supposed to be out with the brothers partying.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. and so that's I wonder then from, and you've probably seen the picture of the wall with all the Post-it notes, all the different colors and so forth. And there was like, when they were doing in production, and trying to figure out the story and how was it all edited? What were those pieces from a continuity perspective? How could they weave the stories into individual parts that made it feel somewhat of an episode that is traditional in sense, but you could still kind of follow along, from that. And it would be interesting to see how, like you said, the first cuts or the different edits that existed, and would the story have been presented differently, from that.
Well, Kyle says it would have been, he talks about how there were clues of Cooper coming back earlier, but some of the editorial decisions just drove me like a little bit nuts from a fan. Like, for instance, okay, again, these are complete nitpicks, but this is why you watch it. This is why people watch this show, because, like, for instance, because only insane fans would notice this. At the beginning, when they show the recap and they show Cooper looking at Laura before the opening credits.
Yeah. Yep.
And she does the finger gesture, right? Where she goes right there.
Yep.
Okay, in the show, in season 2, she makes the finger gesture and it holds for a second and then it cuts to Cooper. Yeah. Whereas in this, they cut a second earlier so that the sound effect of her finger is on Cooper.
Yeah.
Now, why on earth would you do that? It's only a second. Why, that doesn't make any sense to me. Or like the car is about to be robbed in Dougie's driveway, right? The house they were the open house. But then the car explodes and it's a different car.
Yes.
Now people will say, okay, that's a stunt car, Cameron. Okay, fine. Yeah. But then why didn't we have the stunt car be the parked car?
Exactly.
I don't understand this, because like the car explodes and it's got completely different wheels and rims.
Yeah.
And this is why I kept thinking there has to be double timelines going on, because nothing was matching. I was so confused. I was like, for instance, of course, the one that everyone talks about is, why are all the patrons changing around in the diner?
Oh yes. Part 5, I think it was.
Whatever it is, where the guy runs in, where I think Riley Lynch runs in, and they put the wrong subtitle on Showtime, right? Because he says like, "Where's?" I forgot what he says, but he asks where somebody is, but they put the wrong name there. So in the original subtitle, so much so that Sabrina had to come out and say they put the wrong subtitle on. But you can't do that to people who are picking apart end credits to be like, oh yeah, wait a minute, that guy is Richard Horn, right? Where it's like they trained us to have to read the end credits, because they would always say Shelley, and then finally it said Shelley Briggs, like after it announced that they had been married. And that kind of, I thought that was genius, where it's like they made you pay attention to the end credits. And then every end credit was a dedication to somebody who had passed away, and they figured out a way to weave that. But I'm telling you, like all that stuff with the log lady, every time I saw her, I thought, okay, I have to make do with the fact this is the last time we're going to see her on screen. Right. And then the next episode she'd be back. And I'm like, okay, I got to make do. This is the last time she kept coming back. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And then
she was in for so much later in the season.
And again, I've said this before, but when I found out that they had shot her scenes and that nobody else was around, I'll tell you what I thought. I went back to the Bravo days, and I thought maybe Lynch had shot Log Lady introduction for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I love her being in the show, although I do think she pesters Hawk a little too much. Like every night she calls him, and he's like, "Okay, Margaret. Okay, Margaret." I don't know. Maybe in retrospect, I would have, if I had a choice, I would have rather have had Log Lady introductions for 18 episodes.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I thought we were going to get them was because he went back and remastered them for the Blu-ray.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe that's a sign of things to come. So it was all of one piece, but I was wrong. So.
And I think, obviously it's great that she was in it, and able to have the scenes from what she did. I remember those Log Lady introductions, and obviously now looking back at them, in the anticipation of, well, what's she going to say this time? How does it connect? And so forth. To understand, what maybe was taking place, transpiring, or at least a theme for this, particular episode. But at the same time, though, maybe it just that filmmaking wasn't that mindset for today's, audience. But I know it'd been great.
When I found out that she was filming alone, I was thinking, well, that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
was that they just did that, but apparently they'd rather her just like harass Hawk every night at the station. So, but I did find it interesting. They gave her, and fittingly so, but they gave her 3 memorial scenes in a row.
Yeah.
It was like, "Good night, Margaret," and then Log Lady's dead, and then the cabin. I mean, they just completely said, "We're going to take our time," and I like that, and I like the fact that they allowed Pete Martell to go fishing.
Yeah.
Because it was like Jack Nance lives on. It was just things like that. It's those details that I loved.
I'm still trying to find that cabin. I know it exists. Somewhere.
Is that the same one they used for season 1 though?
It is, actually. I think it's just been colored darker, but in it, I was comparing it, looking at there's a tree or something. In the season 1, there's a certain thing, but then like there's a tree that matches up, in some way. But I think maybe it's just a darker, and obviously, cropped, from the original 4:3 to the 16:9. But I know it exists. I'm gonna find it one of these days. It's gonna be there somewhere. I don't know where. Well, but it could be gone now. I mean, that's the thing. It could be long gone. It could have been destroyed. It could have been, you never know. But
let me ask you this. Since you seem to know about a lot of these places.
Yeah.
For season 3, did they shoot Glastonbury Grove in the same spot that they shot season 2's finale? Or did they shoot that up in Washington? Do you know?
I'm sorry, say again.
The Glastonbury Grove scenes in season 3, were those shot in Washington, or did they go back to the same spot in LA and shoot it?
I think it's LA. And the reason why, I've been to the site. And I haven't had a chance to really expand upon this completely, but there is a tree, and the tree has this distinct mark. And we were debating on Twitter one night about it. This is a while back. And I haven't been out there yet. I'm hoping to get out to LA this year. My wife's parents moved out there recently, so I'm hopefully get back out and visit some of these spots again. But there's a scene, and the tree just looks like it matches up. And a lot of times when I'm looking for those sites and those places, I use the trees or the mountains or the buildings or those elements that maybe don't change as frequently, or, you could still find elements too. But I do believe that they went back. It just seems like it.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments in season 2 that a lot of people don't seem to catch. So if you are a fan of Twin Peaks, go back and check it out. The scene in, I guess it would be episode 27, where Bob's arms coming out of, right? Well, this light comes on first, right before Bob's arm comes out, and it hits this tree. And if you look at the light and you look at the image it creates, it actually creates a witch's face on the tree.
How about that?
Which I love. I
don't think I saw it. I'll have to look at that.
And I never noticed it either until like we were watching an episode back when it was on, and my friend was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "What's wrong?" He goes, "It's a witch's face." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he had to run up to the TV and show it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So they obviously they did on purpose.
The spots that they used and so forth. It's been interesting to try to find them. and I understand the mindset for season 3 and how they filmed a lot of it and the pieces and parts that kind of went together. So they may have filmed all of one scene or a bunch of scenes all in one space. I saw that most recently with Lucky 7 Insurance Company and dissecting those scenes, understanding that, they probably just used the same setup and just had Naomi Watts drive in 3 different cars, we're just kind of like, they just recycled the same cars, in the background, but that just probably saved on production time.
Oh, believe me. Listen, whoever was in charge of the pilot and then Sabrina doing season 3, complete geniuses in terms of film economy. Because if you go up to some of those locations up in Washington, especially up in some of the parks and stuff, it's literally, I'm not kidding you, walk 10 feet, location. Walk 5 feet, look to your left, location. Walk 5 feet, location. It's like, okay, over here is Jerry Horn watching the iPad. Then I'm going to walk 5 feet. Oh, there's where Laura and Bobby shot the guy. Okay, I'm going to walk 5 feet. Oh, that's where Cooper saves Laura. Okay, walk 5 feet. Oh, there's Steven and Gersten at the tree.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, walk 5 feet. Oh, there's Jack Rabbit's palace. Walk 5. I mean, it's like, what? It's genius.
Yeah. All right there. Yeah.
But you just turn a little bit this way, a little bit this way. You don't even know where you are. You're in some other.
It feels completely different. Yeah.
And then also apparently that's the same location where James and Dawn also buried the necklace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so much so that when you go there and you go sawmill, sheriff station,
exactly.
Sawmill. Sure. Yeah. And listen, if anything drives me nuts in season 3 is the fact that Lynch, could you not have moved the camera just a little bit so we didn't see the sawmill when Bobby's throwing the damn thing on the ground? And people said to me, well, we never had it established where the sawmill was in conjunction with the sheriff's station. Yes, we did. Because if the sawmill was on fire across the street from the sheriff's station, no. And also, Harry, like it seems like the sawmill is next to where Josie, Catherine, and Pete lived. Like it's almost like the adjoining house.
Oh, yeah, like would have been right there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So Harry would not be getting in his truck, driving to their house, and Jonathan like plotting all this stuff like right across the street from the sheriff's station. He would have been like, "Where is Harry Truman? Oh, he's right there." Oh, okay. No. They shot it because of economy. It had not to do with the fact that the law sawmill was right there. Yeah. But anyway. It drives me nuts that we see the sawmill in front of the sheriff's station in that scene because they could have easily just moved a little bit to the grass, a little bit this way. We never would have seen it. And I don't know. What do you think Lynch was thinking at that point? Was it like, get it done? Or do you think it was, he was trying to do a commentary?
Yeah, probably didn't know, didn't recognize,
What do you say?
I said the average viewer probably didn't recognize,
I know, but Lynch is all about the details.
The details on that, and that could be also the thing, accommodating the shots, trying to make it as efficient as possible, with things and focusing on the action. Yeah, we know that's the, sawmill in the background, but again, people may not recognize that because time has passed and maybe it's just a different thing. Maybe we, because we never really saw the outside of, that's the other thing too. There's so many exterior shots in season 3, whereas so much of the action, I think in the first 2 seasons seemed to be more like establishing shot of wherever X location is. And then all the stuff takes place inside, with that, there's a lot more exterior.
And I would agree with you on that point if it wasn't for the fact that they show us the sawmill at the front of the series.
I know that is true. They do show like
they give an isolated shot to establish the sawmill is still burned down. If they hadn't shown us that shot, I would have been like, okay, yeah, but they established it at the beginning. So
yes, yeah.
Oh my goodness, things like that just drive me nuts. But it's why I still love the show and talk about it all the time.
Exactly. That's the thing. I love these kinds of things, those nuances of finding these little details and, the cut of this and that should have been done this way. That to me, again, it's a game. It's a fun game.
Can you give me an example of something in season 3 that you enjoy, like something like that? That's a detail that maybe a lot of people don't seem to notice.
The first, maybe the one that really comes to mind is when the old lady and the grandson give the photo to Laura, the thing. If you look closely at the way the scene is cut, you can actually see the grandmother and the grandson walking away, like down into the woods, before they even arrive. It's weird how the scene was dissected, or like how it was all put together. And I'm sure it was just like, oh, we needed a shot, so we just put that in. And, you know, you can't really tell, and it's going to go by so quickly. But when you dissect it and go frame by frame and looking at it, like,
are you talking about after she gets the picture?
Oh, before she gets the picture. It's weird. Like, it's like it's like they're walking away, but then they have already. It was an odd.
Well, what I love about that scene is if you go to that exact spot, it's literally in real time and space. I mean, because where Laura's standing is the exact shot of where them walking away towards the train tracks and stuff.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff. There's just funny little things in there that I had a guest on about a month ago who said that high pitched noise, you know, that comes in season 3, right? Right. That we all thought was Josie. That noise is actually heard in the finale of the pilot international version when you see Bob in the basement of the hospital.
And
I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting thing, because, like, I mean, it's a different pitch of it, but it is very similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting to see. I was curious if there was how much recycling there would be of props or various things like that. And that, that actually brings up a great point. Where are the props? That's one holdout that I sit there and go, maybe they're not quite done yet, because they had to obviously buy a ton of set decorating, right? Just a bunch of different things. And I know in other shows, when they come to an end, Battlestar Galactica, Lost, you name it, they had an auction and they sold off all of those particular props.
Right.
But where are all these props? And I'd like to know how much of it was actually Lynch's, his own things that he kind of infused, lamps and that kind of stuff that maybe he's, added to the set. So it takes it. But then where are those other things? Are they property of Showtime? Are they property of Rancho Rosa? Where are those kinds of items?
I think that I don't even know, who knows what the budget was for the show, but I think they started peeing their pants a little bit when they realized they were going to have to get a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, I mean, one of the all-time great things I love is the many front doors of the Palmer house.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, in the show itself, the back door is the front door.
Yeah.
Right, because when Leland and Madeline are sitting on one side of the love seat, Cooper and Truman come in the door there.
Yeah.
But in the movie and in season 3, they use the real house, which means the front door is on the other side of the room.
Yes. Yeah.
So the door keeps shifting, which way you watch it, which I adore. But I mean, just refurnishing the Palmer household.
Oh yeah,
must have set them back a little bit.
And how much continuity do you bring? It has been 25 years, time has passed, so how much of that, But I was wondering if there would be, how much of the sheriff's station, how much of double, or how much of those things would still be kind of carryovers into the new season.
Yeah.
I imagine.
I think it speaks volumes that they shot in a lot of the real locations, because they probably didn't want to build the set for the diner again.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah. I mean, just practical, it's already there. We can make it a little bit easier, and just use that particular scene or that place.
Yeah. Because if you watch season 1 and 2, that diner grows.
Oh, it does. I haven't got to that one. By
the time you get to Truman having his hangover, the diner has grown so big that he's able to, like the run from the table to the back room is about the length of the Great Northern main room.
Yeah. And things move around, the props on the wall, the pictures, all that. I mean, there's so much redecorating, and that, but obviously I'm sure that they set it up and, okay, we're going to build this out now and put this here because we can capture this scene easier or whatnot. To know the prop budget and what exactly and where exactly those items exist today. Maybe they're holding on to them.
Well, I also think that's why there was a lot of new material in season 3 too, so they didn't have to go recreate everything. I think that plays a factor in it. Okay, so let me ask you this, because let's talk real quickly about the Palmer house.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the pilot, they shot inside the Everett house, and then they used the Monroe house for the exterior. And then when they went back for the movie, they just used the Everett house. And when they went back for season 3, they used the Everett house. Why didn't they just use the Everett house for the series?
For the entire series? Well, as the story goes, like they shot some things but didn't like it up in the Monroe place. I've not been to that house. I've been to the Everett house.
Right.
But I haven't seen what maybe was different about it. Yeah, it's a good question.
So they did try for Firewalk with Me, huh? To go back.
Actually, I thought the pilot they did stuff, or season 1 that they maybe were going to try to do something with it. I think it was how the story goes. But it is weird. Like, I mean, why the difference between that?
Well, and I just this tells you how delusional I am. I the way I rationalize it is I say the Everett house is the front of the house and the Monroe house is the back of the house. Because it doesn't look like a front yard. It looks like the backyard of a.
Oh yeah, it does.
Back door. Yeah. So that's how I kind of rationalize. Like, well, that's the back. So.
Yeah. No, it just there's something about that particular house that I don't know. They think they tried interiors, but it just didn't work the same in some way. So they ended up using the Everett house.
Well, I mean, the staircase and the fan, it's iconic. I mean, you can't.
The funny thing that house, the Everett house. So my friend Joe and I, when we went to the '96 Fan Fest, we had a couple extra days and after the Fan Fest, and we decided to drive around Seattle. I do not remember why we went to Everett, other than I think we were told that the house was up there someplace, right? And I'm not kidding when I say it was literally dumb luck. We turned down the street, and all of a sudden, I felt I was in Firewalk with Me, and I'm like, "This is the house, Joe. This is the street," And we pull up, and lo and behold, we didn't go up at the time and knock on the door or anything like that.
Right.
But talk about just like serendipitous occasion, just to be able to. I mean, I don't know what guided us to it, but we went, and it was the most surreal experience. Again, Everett's not like it's a small suburb of Seattle. We just happened to find it, and this is before internet or anything along those lines.
And now it's the main headquarters of Pop Funko.
Right.
Which is quite amusing.
Yeah, they have their their thing they open. Yep.
So, do you? I mean, I hate asking this kind of question, but do you have a favorite episode or a favorite scene of all of Twin Peaks?
Oh, it has to be the Fat Trout trailer park at dusk when Chet Desmond goes back.
With the "Where's my hot water, Carl"? That one.
Yes, that.
Why is that? What sticks out to you about that?
The colors of the sky. I don't know what it is. And I see it every day. Here in Florida, sun's getting ready to set here in just a little bit, and it's going to get to that color. There's like that orangish violet, thing that just there's something about it, and then just that sense of, I don't know, maybe it was impending doom, maybe it was just the way Chet Desmond looked at the pole, the weirdness of the lady, "Where's my hot water?" Just the humor in that, kind of thing. But there's just some feel, and then he goes to see the trailer, and it's just no one's home, and then he just disappears. But there's just, I don't know, that whole vibe. Just I love it.
He doesn't disappear. He fades out because they couldn't afford. They couldn't afford the special effect. Well, that's what I heard. I heard that they tried something and it didn't quite work. And so when I first saw season 3 and there's that scene of Dougie in the living room and he flies back, I immediately thought, well, that's what probably happened to Chet Desmond.
Yes, exactly.
They just couldn't do that back in 1991.
Right.
Have you seen the infamous fan cut that's been going around of Firewalk with Me?
Yeah, where it mixes in the missing pieces.
Well, at least most of them, yeah.
Yeah, most of them, yeah, that were used there. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting take on it, of how it was all put together.
I honestly think, I think whoever did it, I don't know who this M2 is or whoever.
Yeah.
But I was kind of against it at first. I was like, because some of the missing pieces, you'd have to take out some of the theatrical scenes, right?
Right.
But I thought he did a good job with it, and I thought it was like, well, it kind of makes the movie stronger. It kind of does. I mean, just having it all, because it really feels like a Twin Peaks movie, because by removing everybody else and just having it Laura. Yeah, I understand people saying, well, it didn't feel like Twin Peaks, but by putting a lot of people back in, it especially in with season 3, it definitely feels more like a Twin Peaks movie.
Yeah. It was not so singular focused. It was more community, the town kind of thing.
So I get really excited when Sabrina dropped at the UK festival that Lynch might be working on his own cut of it. And that's what I honestly thought was going to be the criterion. I thought, well, why on earth would anyone buy this again after the Blu-ray set? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe it'll be the new cut, and it wasn't. But I still bought it anyway because I'm a nutcase. And it even has less stuff than the Blu-ray does on the other set. But that being said, I really do hope he does come out with another cut of it. I'll buy it again.
Oh yeah.
But I really hope that he goes nuts with it. I don't want just the missing pieces in it. Like I've said before, throw in Cooper in the woods with the Laura James scene. Throw him in there.
Yeah.
Just make just crazy version of it. Because I mean, if you read the script, Laura walks down the street on her way to school, and then it cuts to Philip Jeffries in the FBI office. And then it cuts back to Laura picking up Donna, and they walk to school. And I think that, one, I don't know why they even thought that would work, but that main reason is why I think a lot of that scene's dialogue is removed, because it takes place in 1989.
Right.
Where they moved it to 1988. So you can't have Philip Jeffries talking about 1989.
No.
Right. So it makes sense why they moved it. However, in retrospect, I like the Philip Jeffries stuff, but I don't know. He's only in the movie for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
If you have to truncate the scene that much, I almost think, did it need to be in there? I don't know.
Actually, yeah.
I would have loved if Chris Isaak just reached for the ring and then it cut to that 5-minute above the convenience store scene.
Yeah.
That would have scared everybody in the theater. I mean, literally. Instead of people scratching their heads going, what's David Bowie doing in this? And what's going on? And there's Laura walking down the street.
Yeah.
You could have literally scared the hell out of everybody and then cut to Laura walking down the street.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that edit is, I use it for reference quite a bit, just because I like the missing pieces combined and yeah. I was saying, I agree in that, it's interesting how the how that edit ended up being what it was, but I like the fan edit with that, because I use it for reference quite a bit, because all the missing pieces are there, and most of them and such.
Thank God. Can we just say thank God they didn't include the Cooper Diane scene, which has to be the worst moment of all of Twin Peaks. The Cooper at the door talking to Diane. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that has to be an outtake, right? That could not be a genuine performance from Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah.
Because that just no. Cooper is never that dweebish. I was embarrassed.
It's an awkward vibe. Like, it's an awkward.
It does not fit into Fire Walk with Me at all.
No, it just, the whole tone or the feeling of it is just a little off. Or there was more in some way, but it's so counter to let's test it for the record, and Albert's asking him and so forth. And that seems, again, more, I'm worried about, today, because it's 10/10, 10/10 on February 16th. And, that it is so different and so extreme from that.
I have a question.
There's more.
I have a question for you. When Philip Jeffries walks into the room, what time is it behind Gordon Cole?
Oh, I have to look that up.
It's well, I
thought it was 10:10, but
no. No, it's the clock says 2:53.
2:53. How about that?
Yeah. Which, I mean, let's be honest here. They weren't thinking about that at all back then. But again, it goes to show that they went back and watched Fire Walk with Me and said, okay, how can we connect this to this?
Right. Yeah. retro fitting that to make it work.
And that's why I maintain, as much as season 3 does a lot of different things, at its core, I believe it was let's redeem Fire Walk with Me. And Mark Frost is like, how can I make Fire Walk with Me fit into my world? Because that was not my way of doing things at all.
Yeah, it does have definitely more of a feeling of Fire Walk with Me, on the whole, when I look at it. And even when my wife has watched it, season 3 with me, she, it definitely does not have the same energy as season 1 or 2 related to that. A whole vibe and feeling.
But I also think that Kyle MacLachlan, he's gone on record. I'm sure you've remembered this, where he didn't like Fire Walk with Me for the longest time because he thought it was too dark.
Oh yeah,
Peggy Lipton thought it was too dark. Yeah. And I think that's how they kind of got Kyle to come back for season 3. Besides the fact, hey, you want to do Cooper again? Sure, because nothing else is really working out too much. Let's do it. But I think they got him back by saying, listen, it's going to be much lighter. You're going to do all this stuff with Dougie. And you're going to do stuff with Mr. C. But all of the stuff, except for him killing Daria. But then again, she is a betrayer in some ways. But everything he does that's bad as Mr. C happened before the show started.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing with Audrey and all that, all before the show started. Yeah. The only person who truly does horrible things, the real villain of season 3, is Richard Horn.
Yeah, Richard Horn. Yeah,
he's a dick, and I say this with pleasure. I hated him.
Yeah,
but because he was Frank Booth personified as a bratty kid. So I think that they got Kyle to that way. It was like, hey, listen, we're going to explore Cooper from all these angles. And guess what? You're going to play this whole different version of Cooper, because that must have been happiness to his ears. I don't think Kyle would have been happy just coming back eating pie and donuts. I think he would have done it, but I think this gave him more of an acting challenge.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. As an actor, you want to be challenged, right? You want to be able to bring something new in a performance, or bring some type of thing, to the screen. And so, yeah, I'm sure he was thrilled, by having a whole new, characters to actually, portray from that. So I'm sure as an actor, again, I still think it was just a top-notch performance throughout the entire season 3 of being able to jump from those things, those different types of performances. And then granted, I know they may have shot all of Cooper's stuff at one time, or they may have shot all these other things at one time, kind of thing. But as an actor, being able to know where you are in the story and being able to then deliver that, level of performance, that was really top-notch.
Yeah. I know. I remember when the whole thing happened with the Grammys and not the Grammys, the Emmys.
Yeah,
the whole thing about like, oh, Kyle was shut out. And one of the things was they sent out 2 different screeners. Some people got the whole series, but most people just got episodes 8 and 16.
Yeah.
And so I was saying, look, I want Kyle nominated like everybody else, but you can't, as a voter, nominate him for Best Actor when he's barely in episode 8 and a vegetable in episode 16 until he wakes up at the end.
Yeah.
I said that I think what they had to throw in episode 8 because they needed to get all those technical nominations. Yeah. But they also, by doing that, it's kind of like, well, what do we get? Do we go for the Kyle or try and get as many nominations as possible? So they kind of they got stuck.
Yeah.
And so, Kyle had his Golden Globe nomination. They gave it to him, and then they went for the technical awards with everything else. Yeah. So I agree. I wish he was nominated, but based off the episodes they submitted,
difficult to be nominated for something if he's not hardly even in it, hardly even in an episode.
Yeah. I think they were hoping that his little Mr. C part in 8 and then him as Cooper would be enough to, hey, what, isn't that cool? Let's do this. But I mean, I don't agree, but I understand. And not everybody in Hollywood's evil and wants to, hate on David Lynch. It just
no.
They acted like Twitter acted like it was like this thing, Hollywood hates David Lynch, and I'm like, the Museum of Modern Art does not do 24-hour like marathons of a TV series if they hated David Lynch. It's not happening here. So I mean, it's good to see Kyle getting work again. I mean, I mean, he's always been working, but now he's in high profile stuff. He was even in The House with the Clock and Its Walls, which did well. And, you know, and he did the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so I've
always admired Kyle's interactions on social. I thought, you know, his just connection with the fans and so forth over the years. Just I like that level of authenticity, or at least that feeling, you know, that he acknowledges, you know, that. And if anything, any tweets I may have made about the Emmys thing and so forth were just that, look, Kyle, we appreciate the work you did. You know, I mean, like, if anything, it just you delivered a really top-notch performance for a longtime fan myself. And just again, I hope he knows that, you know, again, that he has such an incredible talent, you know.
Oh, he knows. Come on, everywhere he goes to promote his wine, there's lines around the block.
That's the truth.
So I don't think he's worried about that. And also I think the reason why he's so nice to people, besides him, from what I understand, he's a nice guy, is because he's had it all taken away.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Twin Peaks was gone for a long time. You know, his career had a lot, you know, he had Showgirls, you know, there was a lot of,
come on.
No, I think him and Gina Gershon know the movie they're in, and everybody else thinks it's like an Oscar nominated movie.
Yes, exactly.
And then he was in Sex and the City, which I thought he was really good in, and he was in Desperate Housewives, which, again, going off Sex and the City, I thought he was pretty solid in that. But I remember interviewing Michael Horst before season 3 was even filmed, and I said, can we just get Kyle MacLachlan to be a man again, please? Because he's been so like hated on by so many women in these shows that I'd love to see him like kind of be, you know. And then of course in season 3 he goes, Janie E, scoot over, I'm driving, you know. I was like, oh, okay, you know, there's Kyle's actually in charge again. It's good, because I mean, like, seeing him in a wheelchair in Desperate Housewives being like nitpicked to death by the redhead Marsha Cross, I was just like, I felt so bad for Kyle. I mean, it's good for him as an actor, but I hated seeing him, like, my hero, just being ridiculed by women for like 25 years in movies and TV shows. I felt so bad. But anyway, his career has gone so, you know, it never got higher than Twin Peaks and The Doors at the same time. And so I think that now that there's a renewed interest in him and a renewed interest, obviously, with his wine company, all that, I think it makes, I think he's very much appreciative. Yeah. You know, and because you can't really appreciate it unless it's gone for a time. Yeah. You know,
totally understand that. Yeah.
So, so I'm just happy to see that he's getting work again, and hopefully, if they do decide to do another Twin Peaks, he won't say, "David, I'm busy. Get
find someone else.
get Chris Isaac. All right, let's get him out of the lodge next." Yeah. I was hoping season 3. I was hoping they were going to bring back Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah, because he did have, and then Chris Isaac too, because they both had deals with Showtime. Yeah. And Chris Isaac did tell me that he had been approached for season 3, and just there were reasons that he couldn't do it. He wasn't feeling well. So, but now he's better. But at the time he had a really bad, he was sick. So he couldn't do it. But so that makes me excited that they were thinking about having Chris or Chet Desmond in there. Do you think it was odd at all when they sit around that table and they start talking about the Blue Rose Task Force? And I understand he may not have been part of the Blue Rose Task Force, but no mention of Wyndham Earle at all in this season.
I know. I mean, and he's like one of my favorites. I absolutely love Kenneth Welsh's performance. He just grew on me. And again, this is the early days when I first started discovering the series. You're right. Like, what about Earl? I mean, literally Agent Earl, you know, like anybody, he had to be a part of it, you know, in some way. But yeah, I was surprised he wasn't.
They don't even mention him. They mention Annie once. All right. And then no mention of Earl at all, which I was flabbergasted by. Cause I'm like, really? He's like the big bad of the back half of season 2, and there's nothing.
Completely forgot. I guess rewrote him out of history. You know,
they rewrote a lot of things out of history.
Yeah, but it was exciting, you know, to hear the Blue Road Task Force, kind of thing, like hearing more about that. I remember just that giving more of the mythology behind those pieces, that kind of, it gave a little more insight into what it was,
Let's just be happy that David Lynch is not George Lucas, because on the Blu-ray I could see them like overdubbing Kyle MacLachlan going, this is one of Cole's Blue Rose cases. I'm on my way to Twin Peaks, because there's no Blue Rose at all during season 1 and 2. It wasn't even a thought. And then all of a sudden it becomes the thing in Fire Walk with Me. And so, I mean, it was cool that they tied it in, but it's kind of funny that they went 29 episodes with no mention of a Blue Rose.
No mention at all, I know.
And it's like the prominent image at the back of the Blu-ray case. It's like Blue Rose. It's like, it's like literally like 2 minutes in Fire Walk with Me, Blue Rose. And then.
So then I wonder how much, again, thinking about episodic television in the 90s and that kind of thing, was that too far-fetched for the network? Was that something that they, couldn't incorporate? I don't know. I mean, like what, how much of that, soap opera, that style of writing for television, how much of it, or was it just more of, hey, this is where we wanted to take the mystery with the film as opposed to the TV series?
I think David Lynch just made that shit up.
Yeah, I can see it.
I mean, like people, like I remember people dissecting, saying, "Well, we don't know where Deer Meadow was in conjunction at Twin Peaks," and I'm like, yes, we do, because he says that Teresa Banks died further south of the state. But the reason why I say that is because there's people who are saying, "Well, how is there the Fat Trout trailer park near Twin Peaks?"
Oh yeah,
and I said, this is how it happens. We're doing season 3 of Twin Peaks. Well, we gotta get Harry Dean Stanton in this thing. Well, yes, but Harry Dean Stanton ran the Fat Trout trailer park in Deer Meadow. Well, this will be the new Fat Trout trailer park. That's the extent of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's new, and it does say new on the outside of it.
Okay, let's get to the most controversial question that's ever been asked on this channel.
Okay.
In your estimation, you're a hardcore true fan here. Yeah. Is it the Roadhouse or is it the Bang Bang Bar? I'll tell you where I stand.
Oh, geez, ain't that the truth, right?
It's always the Roadhouse. It's always been the Roadhouse. The Bang Bang Bar is a bar, is the name of the bar inside the Roadhouse, but it is the Roadhouse.
Yeah, I call it the Roadhouse, right? It's just the Roadhouse.
Nobody in the series, not once do they say we're going to the Bang Bang Bar.
No.
It's always going to the Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
How does Jean-Michel answer the phone? Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
How does Jacques Renault answer the phone? Roadhouse. Nobody says, not once.
Meet me at the Roadhouse.
Meet me at the Roadhouse. It never says meet me at the Bang Bang Bar.
Exactly.
It's like you can go to a restaurant and sometimes the bar inside the restaurant has like a different little name.
Yeah, I can see that.
That doesn't mean that the whole establishment is called that.
That in how people sometimes still call things what they used to be. Like, again, they hold on to the name because it's just been easier in a small town community. Yeah, somebody came in and made it the Bang Bang Bar, but we still love to call it the Roadhouse.
But it was the Bang Bang Bar before Laura died too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I thought it was funny when season 3 happened. And I kept calling it the Roadhouse, and people in the chat kept saying, "No, it's the Bang Bang Bar." I said, "No, it's the Roadhouse." And I started getting immense thumbs down on YouTube because I kept insisting it was the Roadhouse.
I love the logo for the Bang Bang Bar, though. I think it's cool. I think it's neat. I like the neon and the stuff. But
I have no problem with it. Yeah, I have no problem with that. It's just that I have to go by what's established, and no character refers to it as that, so I can't. In good conscience. Same thing with those damn German titles for the episodes.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm so happy that you seem to be another one of those.
And that on the blog, I write episode 1002, episode 2001. I don't refer to it the Zen and the Art of Killing a Catcher, Killer, or whatever the case is.
Oh God, it's so horrible. And when I see. I'm not trying to be mean, but when I see like people I really love and respect in the Twin Peaks community refer to these titles, it makes me want to scream and I want to shout from the rooftops, please don't ever call it that again. Because even the Blu-ray and the gold box, they don't have the titles. Yeah. So even Lynch and Frost again acknowledge there were no titles. So I guess people just don't want to say episode 9. Well, I know what you mean when you say episode 9.
Right.
If you tell me the Twin Peaks, the end of the line, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I want one day urban archaeology, and this is the thing with the blog that I've absolutely loved, is just discovering more about the history of this or understanding the place of where this was filmed or that kind of thing. But I'd love to meet the person or the team or the committee or whoever it is in Germany or wherever this was that came up with these. I still want to meet them just to find out, how is this a thing? How did this become a thing? And did you ever think that these titles then could become so much more than what they were? So you're so much nicer than me. I kind of, if I ever met them, I would demand a public apology and a statement decrying that they be removed from the internet immediately. These are not real. These are not the titles you're looking for. I get it. Yeah. Well, I'd still love to know how something like that became canon, became a thing, all that history, because again, you're right. Some of it was probably just made up, and people over time, and they didn't know what it was. So, we need these for broadcast. We need to describe it to people, for our viewing audience, so I'd still love to meet. I thought I had something printed out and all these binders behind me and so forth. But I still can't seem to find any references to how they were created. I just remember when they came about sometime in the 90s,
But they weren't used for the Bravo.
No, they weren't used for Bravo at all.
No. I literally feel like nauseous in my stomach when I see one of those titles come up. Again, now if this was the official title, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
But they weren't. They're retroactively naming these things, and they're naming them "May the Giant Be With You." No. Now season 3 has titles.
Yes.
They named them.
Yeah.
And I think some of those titles are complete trolling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I remember going, this is the chair. Oh, that has to be Linda's chair that was referred to in that scene with Carl Rod.
Yeah.
I was completely off on that one too.
But I still don't call them though by their titles. I still reference it to part 1, part 2, part 3, for just my.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When Cooper's talking to the fireman in the first scene of the show, in your mind, where do you put that? In my feeling is that's when he's in the coma, and when he says you are far away, that's when he wakes up from the coma. That's where he is during his sleep. But the thing that keeps throwing that off is he says Richard to Linda, and he says I understand when he's confused in the motel room about it.
Right.
So maybe that opening scene of season 3 is after season 3.
Right. Somewhere, is it future? Is it past? Right. So where exactly does that take place? But there is definitely a sense of repeat that I've been here before. I get what you're saying now. Okay. I get, and I'm going to go find it. So it's somewhere. And I'd have to believe it's later than it is, or he's been there before, and this has been now another time that he's going through this iteration, or maybe he's still finding his way out in some way.
You're not one of these people, right, that think that the entire season 3 is a dream.
Is a dream,
and he gets out of the lodge at the last episode. Because if that was true, I would burn my Blu-rays right now, because there's no way he's going through that whole journey and just still stuck because it doesn't make any sense, because there's so much that happens in the series.
Yeah. And again, I still love the Sisyphus approach, the idea he's pushing a boulder only for it to fall down the other side. He's going to try to do the right thing. He's going to do whatever it is. And again, very reminiscent of, again, my favorite Vertigo. And here I am at the end of the film. I'm going to try to redeem myself, and, in only to doom, to fall into doom again. There's no way that's it's all a dream. I don't see it that way.
Well, see, this is how my optimistic, old school David Lynch view would be, because he used to really believe in happy endings.
Right.
All his movies used to have happy endings.
Yeah. Robins are back.
Yeah, and Wild at Heart, Sailor and Lula together and all that. How about Cooper just saved Laura, and Bob never went in Leland, and the Palmer family's happy, and Cooper drives out of town saying, "Diane, I'm done here," and he drives out of Twin Peaks, and the show ends. Bravo! I would have been so happy. People say, "Well, how does Twin Peaks end happy?" That's how you can do it. And it would have made everyone feel so good inside, and we would have been so happy. And then you could go back and tell individual stories and fuck with our heads. But I just it's like, I like the ending of season 3 a lot. I do. Yeah. But at the same time, though, I'm like, listen, did we really have to do another cliffhanger?
Yeah.
You had the power to end this any way you want. This is what you chose. I like it.
I like it. That's the thing, right? You know,
I like it.
I do like it. I like the ending,
but I like it if it's leading to something more.
Correct. It sets up the stage for this next piece of the puzzle.
And people who say, "Oh, season 3, ends it and it's perfect the way it ends," and I get it. If it didn't go any further, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But these same people used to say the same thing about season 2. I like season 2 how it ends. Let's not go any further. Oh, I like Fire Walk with Me where that ends. Let's not go any further. And now these same people are saying season 3. Just admit it that no matter how Lynch ends it, you're gonna like it no matter what. Let's do another one. Let's do something else. But I would have loved it if Cooper went back, stopped the bomb. Bob was never in Leland. The Palmer's family is happy, and Cooper drives out of town. I would have been a sobbing mess.
Yeah,
because Twin Peaks is over, and he did his job, and now he's off to go fight another Blue Rose case.
Yeah,
and then you could effectively do Twin Peaks as being a brand instead of the town, because you would have concluded one story and then you could have gone and done other stories like an X-Files thing with other Project Blue Book, Blue Rose Task Force people.
Yeah. That's that whole, again, is Twin Peaks the story of Laura and Cooper and that whole piece, or is it that element of it, but there's a much larger picture in all of it? And I think there's still more stories to tell. To me, I feel like there's just so much more left to be said, and even if that never actually happens, I still, in my mind, I will always play out the what ifs and, where it would go from there, from that. And yet with all that said, again, if this is the ending and that truly is it, the music with the deep low, stuff and the whispering, and if that's the way it ends, great.
But I think that's even a commentary of Lynch too, because he shot that first Red Room scene for the international pilot, in which she whispers in his ear, and the credits just played over that, and then they use it obviously in the dream sequence. But then when they went back to do episode 16, when Leland's caught and killed, they added that great Cheryl Lee voiceover. "My father killed me."
Yes.
Right. And I think Lynch probably was so offended by that he's like, you know what? I'm going to have her whisper in his ear for all eternity, and we're never going to know what she's saying.
Yes. But I like the ambiguity. I like, if that's just what it's left with, I don't mind it, actually. Maybe I've just grown different, over time.
It's like some people, I remember thinking, did you ever watch Lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
At the end of season 6, the final episode, ABC made the completely stupid decision to show the plane crash on the beach. For the end credits, and so everybody thought that they were dead the entire time when it was just something to put over the end credits.
Right.
I think the same thing for season 3. I don't think that Lynch is saying with those end credits that Cooper's forever stuck in the Red Room and Laura's whispering in his ear. I think it was a moment in the show that got this slowed down to the point where we're just being reminded that there's an everlasting mystery going on.
Oh yeah.
What is she whispering? Yeah. Where are they? Where are they going? And as dark as the finale is, I still maintain that it's still somewhat optimistic. Yeah. Because not just the fact that she screams and the electricity blows out, but at the end of Fire Walk with Me, you know, they're in the Black Lodge together, and while the world's going to hell, but they're there together. Laura's not alone. Cooper's not alone. They're together. Same thing at the end of season 3. They may be wherever they are, but at least they have two brains. They're two people together. Laura's not alone. It's not like Laura looks and Cooper's gone. All of a sudden he's gone and she's left alone on the street. Right? That's a pessimistic ending. But they're together. So Cooper and Laura together, they can pretty much get out of anything. So I feel like they'll eventually be successful, whatever they need to do.
I do like the idea that it's the end credit scene whispering and so forth. It is that sense. You do wonder, what is she saying? You know, what's going on? Again, lost in translation, Sofia Coppola's film, where, you know, Bill Murray whispers and so forth. You know, what does he say? You know, kind of thing. And what is that? People want to know what that is, but that's okay. To me, I'm like, well, that's okay not to necessarily know what that, you know, what was said or what transpired. I think your mind fills in the gaps of what you want it to say. So you interpret obviously from that, but you're right. I think that there still is that. And that's why I felt like part 18 was like, again, a fresh chapter of like, okay, this is now the beginning of chapter 4. And we're now going to continue with that, because it just felt just different. Like there was,
it's the end of Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
I'm just stuck in another time. You know? It's just Cooper doesn't have a shotgun and a chainsaw.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's probably whispering in his ear that we're never coming back after Lynch puts this on the air. So that's probably why Kyle's freaking out. He's like, "What about my Twitter followers?" No, I can't. I'm curious to see what Lynch is going to do next. I mean, is he going to do something next? Because I gotta tell you, there's been a few times in his career I keep thinking, oh, he's retired.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, he went 10 years between Inland Empire and season 3.
Yeah.
And season 3 would work as a culmination work. I mean, it would.
Yeah.
So do you think Lynch is going to come back, regardless of Twin Peaks or not? Do you think Lynch is going to come back and do like one more, not theater film, but let's say streaming film or whatever for Showtime or Netflix, whatever? Or do you think that that maybe he is thinking of retiring from a filmic point of view?
I think he's an artist, and so it's going to be a matter of what inspires him, what has caught his mind, and what story does he want to tell, you know, when it comes to this. So yeah, I don't think he's quite done yet. He'll come back in some way. It'll be some type of thing, but I don't know what it'll be.
I'm going to ask you one question, and then hang on, and I got to take care of some real fast while you're answering.
No worries.
I'm trying to think. I'm curious to see what he's going to do. If he's gonna, like, what on earth could he do to follow up this?
Right. Well, and I think that's, you know, for him, again, it is trying to find that story and trying to find, you know, what motivates him. I think anytime you go into a big project like that to me, it just feels like there's more to be said for it. He's a creative guy. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
It's the problem when your wife needs the baby chair and it's in the office.
So no problem. But no, I really do think that he has more stories to tell. It's just a matter of what will motivate him, what will find him, what will spark the interest, you know, enough to invest time. Because I mean, again, it's an investment of time and energy, you know, and you know, it's pretty compelling, I'm guessing.
You know what I would love to see him do?
Yeah.
I would love him to do, I don't know, a limited series of let's just, I know it's a theatrical film, but let's see what Mulholland Drive would have been like as a series.
Oh, I know.
I mean, he's got Naomi Watts, you know, like, why don't we just come back and do 8 episodes of what season 1 of Mulholland Drive was going to be like? And I think, and people say, hey, we got the theatrical film. Let's show the pilot, and then let's do 7 episodes of Mulholland Drive. I think people would love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let me turn on the light here. It's getting dark.
Now it's dark.
Yeah. There, that's a little bit better. There. Yeah, sunsets here in Florida somewhere around 6:50, so it's starting to go down.
how do you feel about the whole reworking of Cooper's image 25 years later by Frost and writers online about the whole Cooper's white knight syndrome and all that? Are you offended like me? No, it's because I like they go, well, he rescued Audrey from One-Eyed Jacks. He would have rescued Lucy from One-Eyed Jacks. He would have rescued Andy from One-Eyed Jacks. That's what Cooper is.
Yeah.
I think it's revisionist writing.
Yeah, no, it's in his DNA, that's just he's going to do that, regardless.
Yeah, it's like when I would go through the final dossier.
Yeah,
it feels less like that's an accurate description of Cooper's character and more of Tammy Preston trying to throw Cooper under the bus so she's Gordon's favorite new recruit.
That I could see, opportunistic, case, and she wants to review this and try to look good for, her boss. I could see where that's.
Yeah, and I still believe that Gordon is dating Tammy on the side. But listen, David Duchovny, choose him out for dating young girls.
Yeah,
right. And I like how people on the internet they always throw out that thing of him saying, fix your heart or die. Yeah. But we forget that Gordon only says that to shut David Duchovny up about him dating young women. But he has his arm constantly around Krista Bell. She looks like a jealous girlfriend when he's trying to bum a cigarette from Diane.
Yep.
So, and then of course, and then in the making of the behind the scenes, he even says that, well, we need, he tells us, he's not in the show, but behind the scenes, he says, well, we got to get this other lady, the French lady, out of here before Tammy gets here, so she doesn't see him with another woman. So, so I firmly believe that Tammy is trying to look good for Gordon, and so she's like, Cooper, I think he's got these issues,
And I do think that there's something. Obviously, there is some type of interest, because they allude to it in several aspects, as you said. So something happens.
Right. I understand there's aspects in there that you can discuss, but to just make a blanket statement and say that Cooper has these problems because he's always trying to save these damsels in distress, his job is to if he could, he would have saved Laura Palmer. He got the opportunity to save Laura Palmer, so he did. Yeah. So he took it. I don't think he should be like demonized forever in purgatory because he tried to save Laura Palmer. I think that with every action there's a consequence, and now they have to deal with that consequence.
Yeah. So I think that could he fall prey to it more so? Maybe, but I still think it's just in his core DNA to be helpful and would do that for anyone that would come about. Yeah, I
agree. So let's wrap this up.
Sure.
Because I've kept you here long enough, I think. But it would be great to have you on again. You're a fantastic guest, and everybody in the chat loves you.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. If anything, the thing I love the most is being able to do this, and being able to share an interest in something that's meant so much to me for 26 years or so, and to be able just to have a great conversation. So you've been really a great host, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Oh, of course. We'd love to have you on. I like when people can talk Twin Peaks with like all the passion that like that maybe the people that are on the internet talk about Marvel movies and stuff like that, but this was always like, it was the first kind of, there's a lot of movies I love, but this was the first thing that I truly loved, truly took to heart.
Oh yeah.
Because it was so, like they say, a continuing story, but it was because it spanned a year and a half of our lives.
Yeah.
In 1990, 91. And those are, especially if you're around our ages, it's a very formative years. So you felt like, even though it's supposed to encompass like a month and a half of time, it took up a year and a half of your life. And so it was very important. So I think about Twin Peaks the way a lot of people think about Star Wars, is like that is like, there's before Twin Peaks and after Twin Peaks. That was the, Twin Peaks is the ground zero for everything. And I believe he is frozen again. I'm going to wait to see if he comes back. Hopefully he does. How are you guys all doing in the chat? I see a bunch of you still watching. Thank you so much. There's a lot of people in the chat. Great to have you all here. You guys are into some really interesting conversations here. Vintage Nerdy Mum. Great show. Couldn't comment as I was just enjoy listening in. Oh, thank you so much. I wonder if he's coming back. Elijah BM says, great show. Addison says, great show. Well, we're not done yet, guys. Hopefully he comes back, but if not, because I want to be able to wrap up and tell you where to find him. All right. Well, just in the case he doesn't come back, I'll tell you. This is Stephen Miller. That is my guest today. You can find him. He's on Twitter. He's got 8,000 followers. That's amazing. But he also has a blog. No, he's gone. The TwinPeaksBlog.com. Check it out. It's a great website. And he just got retweeted today by Showtime for his tweets about today being Happy Twin Peaks Day. So, all right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap this up. Jason says, Steve and Cameron, this is an epic crossover. It definitely was. I enjoyed it greatly. Aaron says, I came in late, listening in, opposite listening to Robert Meyer Burnett. Well, thank you for coming over to this one. All right. Well, I think his computer probably shut down. So, all right, guys. Well, make sure to check out his blog. Make sure to follow Stephen Miller on Twitter. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Click that bell. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And take it easy. And happy Twin Peaks Day. Talk to you guys later. Bye.